Welcome to Beach Boys Talk, a live stream show dedicated to our favorite band, the Beach Boys. Just from your experience, obviously with the guys in person.
But you know that California, that Beach Boys sound voice.
Whether you're a seasoned fan or a new listener, there is something for everyone to enjoy on Tuesday nights.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Chat, how are you? How's everybody doing?
We are not experts or historians. We are just two brothers that love the Beach Boys and their music. We bring on historians and authors, current and past band members, and songwriters to bring us closer to the music we all love.
What are you sitting here? What are you waiting here for?
doing?
You know, Brian, you don't have to wait here. Just go in there. You're the brother, man, you know.
Plus, we feature an all-request live platform, so you can hear your favorite songs each week, a live chat so you can connect with other fans, fun games, and of course, the usual shenanigans. So if you're a fan of the Beach Boys, young or young at heart,
get your chatting fingers ready. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
What kept the Beach Boys from being the Beatles? That's a huge, huge question. But I think I've got the answer.
Hello, I can't hear you, Greg. Hello. Can you all hear me? Welcome to Beach Boys Talk. We're going to get things figured out here. We're so happy to have you all back this week. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. There he is. We have a really amazing guest tonight coming on in a little while. That is the Brian Wilson band member, the great Probyn Gregory, who's been with Brian since really the start of his rejuvenated career, Brian Wilson's rejuvenated solo career. So we're so excited that you're all with us tonight. We can't wait to speak to him. It's going to be really awesome. How you doing, Brother Greg?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it wouldn't be a Beach Boys Talk show without some sort of technical flub. So sorry about that. Welcome, everybody. As my brother said, this is Beach Boys Talk. It's a show dedicated to our favorite band, the Beach Boys. All we do is talk about everything Beach Boys, and it's a lot of fun. It's always fun to have our friends back every Tuesday, so welcome, everybody. Real quick, if you're new, well, here, let me kick it back over to Matt. Make sure we got your whole segment there, Matt. Are we good there?
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say we're two brothers that love the Beach Boys more than any, band, it's any other band. Mm-hmm. We are not experts. We're not musicologists, although I'd like to think after 33 episodes, Greg and I are starting to learn something about our favorite band, but I'll never claim to be an expert or a historian, but we really just are here to talk about our favorite band and why we love them, and then like tonight, get to talk to people who are really a huge integral part to that, keeping the music alive. And so that's going to be fun tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving us some credit there, but on the other hand, retention's part of that too, right? Remembering everything.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So
I wasn't really giving credit. I'm just saying something had to stick after 33 episodes,
You'd think so, but
the
C's I got in high school say tell a different story. So, but
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody again. So real quick, if you're new tonight, so if this is your first time hanging out with us, and you have never said anything in the chat, said hello, we would love to hear from you. Tell us your favorite Beach Boy album. Maybe tell us where you're from. Tell us your name. So if you're new joining us tonight, it would be awesome to hear from you. So type in the chat. We'd love to welcome you and introduce you to all of our awesome friends like Joyce and Joe and Don and Bradley and Jimmy and Stacy and Noah and Sandy and Claire and Les and Barbie. Oh, look at this. Barbie Hansen. Hello from Omaha, Nebraska. Matt, we got a Husker.
Hello there, Barbie.
Here. Hey, Barbie. Welcome. If you're new, say hello. We'd love to say hello to you tonight. and welcome you on our fun little get together we have here. Eddie is on. Hey Eddie, how are you? Good to chat with you. Don, Les is weird. Les is a weirdo. Hey Abby, how are you? Nick, how are you, man? Good to chat with you. Good to chat. Joe is in the house. Hey Joe. We're just saying hi to people right now. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's good to take time and just chat, just say hi to our friends because we don't get to do that as often as they like. Hey Joyce, hey Scott. Scott's in the house. By the way, everybody, leave our show right now and go over to Scott's Facebook page because Scott has a really cool feel. If you've ever wanted to play piano, and maybe you're just a little hesitant but love the Beach Boys. He's got some great tutorials on there on how to play some really awesome Beach Boy tunes. He just put one out on how to play Feel Flows, and I listened to the thing, and it is spot on. So, Scott, let people know where your Facebook page is or whatever.
Man,
yeah. So
put a link in the chat, Scott.
Yeah, definitely props to Scott. We have Mark Schuster on. Everybody, Mark, let me see if I can grab my book here. Matt, talk about Mark for a second while I pull up the book.
One of our earlier episodes, Greg and I wanted to do an album, and we did Holland, which was an album we didn't know very well. So we listened to it and studied it, but we also read this amazing book by Mark Schuster, who's joining us tonight. And, Mark, we're waiting for the sequel to that, Carl and the Passions. It's a really good book, Greg. If you show it closer there, y'all make sure you get that book and read it. It's really good.
Yeah, go check out our Holland episode and then buy this book and then listen to Holland again, and it's a completely different deal. It's called Tired of California, the Beach Boys Holland Revisited. Not leaving California or anything like that we usually mess up. So, guys, Mark has joined us tonight. Mark is in the chat. So, Mark,
he's here.
Go to Amazon, go buy this book and read it. It's a short read, but it's an awesome read, especially if you're really into Holland or new to Holland. It's really, really fun. So, who else we got?
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Jimmy's on here. Les. Oh, man, talk about talented. Les Hastings, everybody. Les has a fantastic YouTube channel and fantastic Facebook page where he posts new content. And in fact, he's worked the awesome cover for the Surf's Up edition of Endless Summer Quarterly was done by our friend Les Hastings. So, if you haven't noticed, we have a lot of talented folks in the chat, that join us every week. And this is what makes up the Beach Boy community. I mean, it's how lucky are we to get to hang out with these people every week.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Stacy and Sue, all these folks everybody that's on here, I feel like is like an administrator of like a Facebook page that I'm sure, or a Facebook group that you're a part of if you love the Beach Boys. Just a lot of really awesome people on here that are great resources and so talented, just so talented. It's awesome that we're lucky to get to hang out with these folks.
And Les has a really cool Facebook page as well. You may have said this, Greg, but I just want to reiterate where he does all his remixes of songs. And I just heard one by Celebration that he put up there. He's got some really cool music, so you got to check it out. I love that stuff.
And we had Ron Outback on the show, which was really cool. He was a big part of that, so that was fun. Wallene,
our friend,
hello.
Sorry, I was going to say our friend Wallene's here, and she said her birthday's in a couple days. So happy birthday to you, Wallene.
Let's sing happy birthday to Wallene.
Thanks for being a big supporter of the show.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Wally. Happy birthday to you. Ooh.
And many more.
And many more. Happy birthday, Wallene. Oh, Wallene has been a friend of the show for a long time now. Wallene, you've joined us a lot. So happy birthday to you, Wallene. I hope it's a good one on October 28th. That's a day after our little brother's birthday, October 27th.
And those of you new out there, Wallene actually attended Hawthorne High School right around the time the Beach Boys were there. So pretty cool, huh? Yeah.
That is very cool.
Cool stories.
That is very cool. Yeah, it's very awesome. I heard she turned down Brian. Brian asked her out on a date, and she turned down Brian. So it's that's what I heard anyway. I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's true or not. But welcome, everybody. Hi, Cindy. Welcome. Remember, if you're new, I know we had a new a person on there. We had a couple new folks on here tonight that I saw. Monza's in the house. Monza is another amazing creator in the group. that if you haven't checked out his Instagram page, Monza, I don't know if you have a Facebook presence, but his Instagram page has so much cool content. In fact, Monza, we should have showed it today. I may try and pull it up here while Matt's talking for the many moods. But Monza has he's an illustrator too. He's just a really talented guy. His voice is just dynamite. And if Brian ever needs a high vocal in that group or the Beach Boys touring group, Monza needs to get that call. Monza is super talented. He has this really neat, it's like a Disney cartoonish illustration looking thing. I'm not doing it justice, of Brian from like 67. Matt is so cool. I'm going to try and pull it up here in a minute. But Monza, another talented person on there. Folks, we got Steve. Hey, Steve, how you doing? Let's see. Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Man, I appreciate, Jeff, you joining us. Let's see. Madcap GR. We need an interview with Carol K. Oh, trust me. I've talked with Carol K a couple times, and she says she'll hop on as soon as she can and when she's not busy. So she's pretty busy these days. But we would kill. That's season 2. Season 2 is Carol K. We'll have Carol on. She is awesome. Man, what a treat.
I don't know if Fred Vale's still on, but earlier in the chat, the legendary Fred Vale was joining us here in the chat. So Fred, if you're still there, we love you.
Absolute legend, Fred. Yeah. Well, Matt, should we kick off our show here with our usual first segment? Everybody, every week we do a segment called The Many Moods of Matt, and this is where my big brother Matt over here gives us a thought or a controversial opinion or just something he's been thinking about over the past week or so, and then we all chat about it. And usually we end up roasting him, which is a lot of fun. Hey, Gail, thank you for liking the stream. Appreciate that. So, Matt, without further ado, let's do this thing. What do you think?
All right.
The many moods of
October 19th, which was last week, was the anniversary of the release of the Beach Boys' 1964 concert album, Live in Concert. And again, I want to give our friend Fred Vale a shout out for that. It was his idea to do that album, and it ended up becoming the Beach Boys' first #1 selling album. Now, that got me thinking about the Beach Boys and their concerts. If you go a few years later, you have a Live in London concert from '69 that was released, and then in '73, the Beach Boys concert album. But what's different about those last two albums is that the Beach Boys have many more musicians on those live concerts than just the 5. So it got me thinking, what would the Beach Boys be without all their touring musicians? Could they have survived the '60s and the '70s as a touring band without a little extra help? And that's not a criticism of the Beach Boys. It's really a testimony to their beautiful music and productions and how complex they were, that they needed a lot of people to make it sound the way it should, just like they did in the studio with the Wrecking Crew. And when I did some research, I found that in the 60 years, or at least since the Beach Boys' first tour in '67, where they started having extra musicians, I think Ed Carter was one of the original ones that came. They've had, including with Brian's band now, and then the Beach Boys band and everything, about 50 touring musicians at different times. Think about that toured with the band all through those years. So you have the 5 original members, you have Bruce, you have Blondie and Ricky, but then on top of that, you had 50 other musicians. So, when their career got rejuvenated as a live touring band in the early '70s and went through the mid '70s, it was more than just the 5 Beach Boys. It was the Beach Boys and a lot of awesome musicians who helped to make that authentic Beach Boys sound. The Beach Boys albums of the '70s are kind of a juggernaut. Some of them we really like, some we don't like, but commercially, most of them did not do well. And what kept them going all through the '70s into the '80s was their touring. And so I guess all I want to say is I want to give a shout out to all those folks that played with the Beach Boys throughout the years. We're actually going to have one of those guests on tonight, Probyn Gregory. But I think the touring members of the band are unappreciated and not well known. I think if it weren't for them, the Beach Boys would not have made it through the '60s and '70s. We owe a debt of gratitude to the musicians who stayed out of the limelight just to focus on making that beautiful that beautiful, authentic Beach Boy sound. So I just wanted to have a shout out to that. And I guess the question tonight would just be more, do you think the Beach Boys would have made it as a touring act without all their extra musicians? And because of that, are there, when we think about, again, Beach Boys 70s concert stadiums, we say the Beach Boys, but it's the Beach Boys and 10 other guys. And I feel like they're a little bit overlooked. So in our little stream here, I just wanted to give a shout out to all those members who kept the music alive.
The many moods of It's like it looked like you were reading off a teleprompter, but the teleprompter was Did
all
you
right,
read?
Keep making fun of me.
You've never
say,
I've never seen I've never seen you read The Many Moods of Matt. Did you write that out?
No, why don't you just give me a thought on what I said? What do you think about the Beach Boys and being a band that has so many touring members? Is that normal for bands? I don't watch a lot of bands. I know that the four seasons have changed throughout time. Billy Joel's he's Billy Joel, so he has different band members. But the Rolling Stones didn't seem to change. The Beatles retired. Pink Floyd. Bands like that. They seem just to be them, so why are the Beach Boys so different? Is it because their music's so complex? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to say something controversial after kind of off of what you said. I don't think they really got it right until the Wondermints, to be honest. I think individually, each touring member, obviously super talented, but in terms of actually looking for somebody that fits your group, the Beach Boys were in this cyclical thing where, well, we need somebody, let's just find whoever's available versus, trying to fit something that isn't there. And it starts with Bruce. And once again, Bruce is incredibly talented, awesome songwriter, great vocalist.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put him, and this may be a hot take, I wouldn't say that he fits well as a touring member. Next up, Blondie and Ricky. Incredibly talented, great writers, cool dudes. I don't think they fit the Beach Boys at all, but it seemed to be just whatever's on there. And and throughout the years, it's the Beach Boys are a vocal group primarily, and they just for some reason kept overlooking that fact that we need to have great vocalists on stage that can do these parts. And yet they didn't seem, in my opinion, it didn't seem like they kind of got that right until the Wondermints era, where they're actually going after a band that is really that can replicate that sound. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no. And I've seen a name floating around in the chat here, Jeff Foskett. He's a great example of that. He came in the 80s, 90s, and then came back with Brian's band. He's more of that authentic sound. Brian actually said, well, I'm sorry, but Brian actually said, if I had this band that I have now in the 60s, I would have toured Smile, and so to your point, you had to have those musicians. For instance, Probyn Gregory, who's coming on tonight, plays so many instruments. He plays trombone, trumpet, French horn, the theremin, guitar, and in a lot of those Beach Boys productions that are more complicated, you need those musicians.
And once again, these guys and gals existed in the 60s and 70s. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But for some reason, they were just. It seems like they. I don't know who was deciding who was touring with them, but it seems like it was all done very hastily or something. You know what I mean?
What's interesting about that? When Jan and Dean used to tour live, they would have the Wrecking Crew, members of the Wrecking Crew, back them up. So that sounds like that could have been an option for the Beach Boys, to have a couple extra guys there, But,
yeah, now granted, money was probably tight in the late 60s, I would guess. And from what I've read, it seems like, because they were in a couple different lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they just didn't have the money to pay that caliber. But on the other hand, like I said, the musicians they had were awesome.
Yeah.
Ed Carter and we talked about all of these cats, but
we've interviewed some. Bobby Figueroa, a great drummer,
Yeah, but once again, Bobby came later. You know what I mean? We're talking 60s, 70s too. It's for some reason they were just kind of going with whatever and not necessarily thinking about what they were trying to accomplish. Although, now that I think about it, I guess in the early 70s they weren't necessarily the nostalgia act yet. You know what I mean?
No, so they weren't. And but that's kind of what I was saying though. Do you think that in the late 60s, early 70s, if they just kept their unit like they did on that 64 concert album, I don't know if they could have kept going and played music from their new albums and produced that. Maybe like, do it again. There's certain songs they could have played, but and again, that's not a criticism of them. I just think it makes me think more that the Beach Boys were like with Brian Wilson, were a studio entity, making these fantastic productions that are almost pieces of artwork instead of just, like bluesy, hardcore, whatever, rock and roll that you can go out and replicate on stage, And so they needed those musicians. And I just feel like when they came back and became famous again and popular, it wasn't just the 5 guys. It was all these guys in the background that went out there every night and played these parts. Carly Munoz is another one in the 70s, right? We talked to him.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
And so I just, and again, it's not really a controversial take, but I guess the big question would be, do you think the Beach Boys would have survived as even just a touring band without any help? And I don't think it's bad to say no about that, but I just think their extra touring members were necessary and not only necessary, but, really put them over the top in the sounds,
Well, survived and then sold tickets are two different. Like, I think they probably would have survived, but
yeah,
I mean, I don't know that even Carl would tell you today that as you get into this set, like the early 70s and 80s, like he, in terms of guitar skills, I mean, Carl was a great guitar player.
Yeah.
But you have this huge like growth of rock and roll out to where you're starting to get players that are just, especially touring cats that are just way beyond, I think, what the Beach Boys even comprehended when they were young, what they thought was possible. Yeah. Because rock and roll had grown at that point, to everywhere, and everybody was trying it and everybody was learning. And so I don't know. I think the question's a good one. I think we should go to our chat.
Yeah, and one more thing. Let me go to the chat. But the other thing to remember about the Beach Boys too is that when they started, they were so young. Brian didn't even play an instrument except for piano. He had he self-taught on the bass. Dennis was self-taught on the drums. So it was even going to take them a while probably to catch up to get polished. You know what I mean? So, in order to become just a good sounding tight band, but their early stuff, they could more because it was more simple. The harmonies were still complex, but even on the records, it was still mostly guitars and drums and stuff. But then when you get into, the Beach Boys today, especially, and then further on, all of a sudden you see an influx of all these new instruments and more layered sounds and things.
I don't know that I don't know that it has so much to do with their early records being simple, because like if you look at a band like the Strokes, like their stuff is really simple too. It's like guitar, bass, and drums, or a lot of I think it had more to do with expectations. I think as rock and roll grew, as people, more people were listening and buying records, like all of a sudden, like the amps on stage weren't going to cut it. Like they're going to need the expectations of the audience was probably growing and growing and growing. Just like probably anything, you expect the next time you go see something for it to be better. And unfortunately for the Beach Boys, like I don't know. I feel like if you listen to any of their, like some of the bootleg stuff or the concerts, luckily most of it's been like released at this point. But in my humble and uneducated opinion, I think 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69 from a touring perspective, I think it all goes downhill. Yeah. Until just from a performance, from a sound perspective, from an energy perspective, I don't know.
There's a couple good examples of that. The 66 Michigan show is a good example because that's when they introduced Good Vibrations. So
that concert
Sounds
is so
already
bad.
Out.
That concert is so bad.
And then even though I like it, but I like it maybe for the history of it, the Beach Boys Hawaii concert where Brian joins them is very unpolished. You know what I mean? They try to rock out on Surfing and it doesn't sound like it's tight, and that could have been because Brian wasn't there. But the point is that's when they were more in that era. They play Heroes and Villains at that show and things. And it with just the 5 of them, it just sounds so bare compared to their productions, So even if they were master musicians and everything, I just feel like they couldn't duplicate that sound without a bunch of extra musicians. And so, once again, just a shout out to those guys.
Yeah, but what bothers me is that, like, yes, the productions were big, but to me, the number one thing about the Beach Boys are the vocals, and they never seem to really kind of care about that. They kind of just like, I don't know, like once again, Bruce, you'd think if someone's going to take over for Brian, they should be able to handle the Brian parts like super, like really well, like without problems. And yet Bruce was not strong, I think, from a falsetto perspective. I mean, he didn't sound like Brian. It wasn't a strong falsetto. Al sang a lot of the falsetto stuff like that. It just seems to me like they like just.
I think there's a couple reasons for that, though. I think one reason is, again, they had to play their instruments at the same time. So in the studio, they could just focus on those vocals. And then when you're playing live, again, I don't play live. I'm not a musician, but it's totally different. And secondly, in the studio, those things were dubbed. Those voices were dubbed so much. They sound a lot fuller than they really were, you know? So, I mean, maybe again, we've talked about the production side before. Did it hurt them? You know, and that's a different question, but I think that's part of it as well. And I think that's why eventually they brought in all these other musicians and extra vocalists and everything, because they realized just the five was kind of thin. And if you're expecting to hear, wouldn't it be nice at a concert, you know, listen to the one on the Michigan 66. First of all, it's Al singing it. And secondly, it doesn't sound anything like the recording. You know, I could see why somebody would be disappointed that went to see the Beach Boys, you know, during that time.
Or hearing I Get Around and Bruce on the high part. It's just like it's really thin and weak and it just doesn't have the drive. And maybe in 66 things were a little different, so maybe they were probably not super into playing I Get Around to begin with, you know, it being 2 years old at that point or whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have. But Matt, going back to, I think, keeping it positive.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Beach Boys were pretty lucky to have some of the members that they did. And you mentioned Carly Munoz. That cat is so talented, man. He could play keyboard so well. Yeah. When he came on and did a rendition of Surfer Girl from his bar in where is he, down in Cuba?
Yeah.
Is that where he is?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy can play piano, and he could cover any part Brian, I think, could write easily.
And that was kind of the point of what I was saying tonight, was that I just feel like in the history of the Beach Boys, you hear of their story. You know, you hear about Murray, you hear about them almost breaking up, you hear about Smile, the strife and everything, but you really don't hear about how they kept it going. Was in the 70s and late 60s really was through touring, but it wasn't just them. They had a lot of help. And again, that's not bad. But I just feel like we should recognize all those folks that went, like you know, Greg, you play music live, you tour. Think about the grind of the guys who go out there and play, but don't get the recognition as being a Beach Boy. They sit back there with no lights on them, just rocking out. I mean, you know what I mean? And I appreciate that a lot, you know? Oh
yeah. It's not a fun, at least in my short time touring, I hated it so much. I can't imagine, and I'm interested to ask Probyn kind of this, but like it's a really tough life. It really is. I mean, I don't sleep well in hotels. So like strike one, like you have to be able to sleep. You know, it's rough. It's not as much fun as one might think. It's like anything else. Once you do it forever, it becomes boring. But let's go to the chat. What is that?
And Sean said, sorry. Well, there's two things. One correction. Rand told us, Carly's in Puerto Rico. That's right. Not Cuba.
Darn it. I was going to say Puerto Rico. Thank you. That's right.
And Sean O'Grady said the unsung heroes in the band. That's kind of what my point was tonight. You know, they have just as much to do with the Beach Boys' success, you know, after the initial part of Brian and all the guys writing that music and put on a record than any of the Beach Boys do, in my opinion, you know? So
yeah,
very good stuff.
Yeah. And I get it too. I mean, I know a lot of it has to do with relationships that you build with people like Mike and Ron Outback. It's just like, yeah, come on, like come join us. Like, you know, we're friends and that kind of thing. Or Carl and the Flame, you know, or, you know, it's like, hey, these guys are cool. You guys want to come?
Gary Griffin, remember, he just got a call one day.
Gary
said,
Griffin.
I want to play with you guys, you know?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Jimmy Beige on Facebook says, my question is, how did they solidify Brian's missed harmony? Was there a doubling of his falsetto? That's one of the biggest missing pieces and something I don't quite understand. Why they never just hired somebody that could handle that part really strong, right? You know, instead of two guys sharing it, that maybe the falsetto wasn't quite there as Brian had it. No, to answer your question, Jimmy, I don't think they they ever
never
doubled
did
his
double it,
falsetto.
no.
See, that would have been like if you'd think that if you were a manager at the time, you would have said, "Hey guys, we're really trying to." But then again, things necessarily kind of, the Wild Honey record and Friends became a lot more, not as produced and not as much.
That's right. Those are more single track vocals. Yeah.
Claire says that the touring members are the backbone, the support for sure. Yeah, 100%. It's one reason why I'm really excited to talk with Probyn tonight. It's been a huge part of Brian's support for the past 20 years, right? If not longer. They're pretty cool. Owen Hassel says, think Hulu has a great doc on the Wrecking Crew that gives them credit they deserve. Carol Kay, Hal Blaine, and so many. Yeah, that's another group, man. Talk about, we had, oh my gosh.
Tommy Morgan.
Tommy Morgan on.
Yeah.
What's funny is he played the harmonica part on Good Vibrations.
And I know there's an answer he played on Pet Sounds.
But what he mentioned is he didn't even know it was out until he heard it shopping with his wife or something.
Yeah, he's like, I played on that.
He's like, I played on this, and talk about unsung hero. No one will ever know that those guys played on that outside of the nerds like us that dig into it a little bit.
Know that stuff, yeah.
But man, I mean, those guys and gals. I mean, Carol Kay, my gosh. Who knows her name outside of, once again, the nerds, the super nerds that.
Yeah, and and the Wrecking Crew got a documentary. I saw that you read that, and I've seen that documentary. It's awesome. But how about a documentary about the Beach Boys, touring members throughout the year? I mean, think about it. They're, including Brian Wilson's band, you've had 45 to 50 different touring members. It's quite a number if you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be neat to hear their story. Neat to hear their stories.
Yeah, Tony Asher, another one, another unsung hero.
Yeah.
John Butler says, I'm learning a lot tonight. Thanks, guys. Well, don't thank us, man. Thank the chat. The chat knows more than we do. That's for sure. Monza, I can cover those parts immediately. Monza, yes, you can. See, that's the thing. Yeah. In 1964, when they're like, hey, we need Brian, Glenn Campbell. Now, that guy, can you imagine Glenn Campbell rocking for a long period of time? But why didn't they have an audition or some sort of cattle call where they're bringing people in, or trying to find somebody that can match his sound? Or something?
Maybe somebody in the chat could illuminate us, but I just feel like touring was more to support an album. You weren't, almost reverse. That's why I say the Beach Boys' focus seemed to be to make the best album possible, to make it with the best sound, the best production. It seemed like touring was almost secondary. That was something you went out to do as an obligatory thing to make some money and push your album,
who'd be a good somebody to ask would be Fred, because Fred was such a huge part of the promotion and the concert side. The question would be something like, were the concerts to help sell the new album, or was it just
to sell themselves in a way, to promote themselves. Yeah.
I mean, I know what touring is. I understand that. I just, it seems like, what were you trying to sell? Were you trying to sell the Beach Boys, in which case you'd think you'd want to have a bigger vocal presence, more guys on stage singing, or the next album, in which case, if you're selling Friends, you don't really need, double Brian's harmonies, because he's not really on too much of that. Tom Jones on YouTube says, Ed Carter's late 60s, same with Billy Hinchy, Mike Kowalski, Bobby Figueroa in 1974, Collie Munoz, Blondie Riggy. He says, all awesome. Yes, they are all awesome. There's no doubt about that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Wallene says, Brian will have a doc coming out soon. Yeah, by the way, I saw what's out. I haven't seen anything. I only saw a picture of it. I didn't actually get to click on anything. What's out there, Matt?
Well, apparently there's a trailer out now for the Long Promised Road, but I haven't watched it yet
Haven't
either.
we seen the trailer, or is it different
that was a clip of the interview, but no, this is like a trailer for the movie, like an actual movie trailer, but I haven't watched it yet. I'm after the show, I guess. So.
Oh, hey, maybe I can pull it up. We can all watch it together. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah. See the Wave on YouTube. Hi, Matt, Greg, and everyone in the house. See the Wave in the house, everybody.
Hello.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Les Hastings says, albums are forever. Touring is uber loud, which covers up things in person and a one-day experience. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. That's a great
point.
I guess
when you look. No, go ahead.
Well, so when we listen to the soundboard recording of the 1966 Michigan concert, it is a very different experience to be sitting in the audience having the sound actually pushed at you. You know what I mean? Being there.
That's what I was going to say. It probably sounded way different than what we're hearing on these bootleg recordings or even official recordings, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point.
That is a good point, yeah.
All right. Michael Vega, Jeff Foskett told me Probyn has a Minnesota connection. He thought Probyn was born in Minnesota. I thought Probyn was from Ohio.
He was born in New Hampshire, I think.
Oh, was he? I know he was in Lima for a while. But
yep. Al was in Lima or Lima.
Oh, was he? Well, I know.
Yeah.
I saw something on Facebook where he's got we'll have to ask him about. I thought he was in Ohio for a little bit, but something like that. Cindy says, Cindy on Facebook, plus they had to fill holes fast to go on tour if someone dropped out. Oh, you know what? That's a good point too. I mean, it depends on if they have to fill it in pretty quickly.
Well, it's fair. Like when Brian said he's not touring anymore, they probably already had, commitments to tour, so that, they probably didn't have time to just do tryouts and stuff. They said, we need somebody,
Yeah.
But that's a good example. Glenn Campbell is a Wrecking Crew member and he toured with the Beach Boys. Too bad we don't have any of those shows on tape though, huh? I've never heard one with him. That would have been cool.
Gene on YouTube says, touring was so much different in the 60s than it is today. Tours with Chicago, The Dead, and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young helped the Beach Boys regain some popularity in the 70s. Yeah, true. Joe Goldenberg on YouTube. We got a lot of YouTube folks tonight. That's awesome. Joe Goldenberg,
awesome.
The first time I heard about the Wrecking Crew musicians was on the live side 4 of the Jan and Dean anthology album.
Yeah.
Oh. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, because that's why I said they used to play when they played live. It was only Jan and Dean, so they needed a band. It was always the Wrecking Crew. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Hal Blaine would play drums for them and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be a Jan and Dean hater, but how is it that Jan and Dean figured out how to get the Wrecking Crew members and the Beach Boys didn't? You know what I mean?
Well, they only had 2 guys. They had to get somebody.
Well, I get it, but you only need 2 guys to do Surf City. Like Good Vibrations is a completely different deal. It's like I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's true.
See the Waves. Does anyone remember the Here and Now documentary? I don't. Do you, Matt? It's really familiar.
Is that Carl Wilson? Maybe, I don't know.
Oh yeah, sure. Maybe. Tom Jones. Hey Tom, on YouTube says Tom. Tours didn't get sophisticated until mid-70s. 60s shows were less than an hour mostly. Yeah, so it probably wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rick Jensen on Facebook says, Rick Jensen in the house. Hi Beach Boy, Brian Wilson fans. Long Promised Road trailer is out now. Can't wait for its release. I don't know. Should we try and get away with watching it on here? Should we all watch it together? Would that be weird? Matt, you want to read some comments while I try and pull it up?
All right.
We're all family. We can watch it together. It might be interesting.
Wallene said Roger Christian was a writer on early Beach Boys records and a DJ on KFWB AM radio, and he helped Brian write car songs. That's right. He did. Yep. Noah, I wish they had some audio of shows when Al and David were in the group together. Yeah, that would be so cool. That's another guy we need to talk about some night is David Marks. If he had stayed with the Beach Boys, I think their trajectory would have been much different as well, and maybe in a good way, So that's interesting. Karen said, yes, Carl Wilson, I have it. That's about that Here and Now documentary. Jimmy says, in 74, the Beach Boys were on tour with Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. This was about time after the Endless Summer record. Huh, that's cool. Les Simon may have some old videos of the Wrecking Crew, says Cynthia. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, lots of stuff. I can't see anymore. You got it up there? Let's see what this looks like here.
Yeah, we're gonna watch this together as a family. Let's see if it works. That'd be kind of cool, right? Everybody, sit back, relax. We're gonna check out this trailer real quick. It's 2 minutes. Let's see what happens.
Brian just threw
we're
away
gonna
the
get
rule
flagged.
book, just took you out of where you were and took you to another place.
Don't get flagged.
There was no greater world created in rock and roll than the Beach Boys. The level of musicianship, I don't think anybody's touched it yet.
To dream up these textures that never existed before. That's why people say Brian's a genius.
The rooftop is down. The story begins.
I'm picking up. The beauty of it carries with it a sense of joyfulness, even in the pain of living.
There's something going on with Brian Wilson. There's no hiding that this man is troubled, trying to escape something.
And the pressure that comes with that, the pressure to continue to be the person that people think
Nick Jonas? Why is Nick Jonas on here?
The idea of doing an interview
He's
makes
going to play
Brian
Frankie
nervous.
Valli on a
And
Jersey
this is
Boys
kinda
TV
where
show, too.
Is he
things got
really?
difficult for you,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
What was going on?
I don't know. I was having mental problems.
Yeah. So we'll often ask
Oh,
if we
I love
can just
Brian.
take a drive and listen to some music.
What a sweetheart.
So this was all where the house was, right here?
Yeah. Matt, we got to go there.
I know. I want to make that whole drive.
Look.
I want to do all that.
Mark's the spot.
Look at him holding hands. How sweet is that?
The fact that he's still here and making music, it's a miracle, kind of, isn't it?
I don't know how you do that.
1, 2, 3.
It's Nikki Wonder.
I got this terrible feeling in my chest, you know? I'm nervous.
You got this. That must have been a really exciting time.
It was. It was a trip.
Oh man, how cool is that?
That thing looks awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be very cool. Let me. Oh wait, that's for later. There we go.
Boy, I can't wait to see that. And yeah,
man,
the actual movie poster looks really cool too. So that's going to be awesome when it comes out.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not a big Nick Jonas fan. For some reason, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. But anyway, man, what a cool. Man, I got chills watching that, man. Super cool.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm with you, and I could, it's neat. They say if you get the right person to talk with Brian, it all kind of pours out of him, and I heard in that documentary, that's kind of what it's like, that he remembers things and he gives some neat insights you might have not heard before. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, whoever did that on the
yeah. Has anybody in
it.
our chat actually seen the documentary? Anybody? I know David Beard saw it. I know. I'm sure a few of our guests.
Well, it opened in it had a premiere in Nashville, actually, at a movie festival in Nashville.
Oh, hey, that's our old stomping grounds there.
That's right. That's where we first met Brian. Isn't that funny?
That's right. Matt and I, we used to live in Nashville for a long time, actually. Anybody see this? I'm trying to see if anybody has actually seen the whole thing. I mean, there's a chance that someone could have, right? And kind of talk.
Yeah, and also there is a new song that's going to be released with the album. I don't know when they're going to release it, but it's a new song Brian wrote with a collaborator. I forget the collaborator, but again,
cool.
I'm looking forward to all that. Yep.
Yeah.
I like any new music from him. So.
Oh yeah, it's so great. He's still writing fantastic music. Well, Matt, you want to go to our Facebook poll before we
let's do our last segment here, and then we got our amazing interview guest tonight. Yeah.
Then Probyn Gregory is going to be in the house. It's going to be really fun. So
the poll we set up this past week, everybody, and a lot of you answered, and thank you. I hope you like the polls that we do. We try to make them interesting. This one was actually suggested from
a viewer
Twitch user,
suggestion.
Pickles. And the question really was, if you have only one song you could put on an album, and your choices are only between a Bruce Johnston song or a Blondie and Ricky song, which one would you choose? And I don't mean the song, but which artist would you choose to put a song on a Beach Boys album? Now, before we go into the chat, I will say that I actually chose Bruce Johnston. And the reason I did is because even though I have, I don't like all his songs on Beach Boys albums, I do think they're out of place. I think they still allow for more of that Beach Boy harmony. A good example of that is Disney Girls. And another good example of that is the song Endless Harmony, where you still have that Beach Boys sound. Whereas even though the Ricky and Blondie songs are good songs, they don't sound like the Beach Boys at all to me. And so that's why I chose Bruce.
Interesting. I chose Blondie and Ricky for almost the exact opposite reason, Matt. I chose them because of the reasons you didn't. And for me it was because they're so different. Because they don't sound like the Beach Boys, and at the time they were attempting to be progressive and something different. I think that Blondie and Ricky, helped accomplish what they were trying to do versus, I think, anything that the Beach Boys were trying to do with Bruce. Like if you listen to me, if you listen to Carl and the Passions and and Holland, the Ricky and Blondie songs to me fit in really, really well. Like they blend with the rest of the record. It sounds good. Whereas to me, Bruce's songs on Sunflower, like 2020, they seem really, really out of place. Maybe like at the very least, Here She Comes like sounds like the other tunes on the record. They kind of blend. Whereas Disney Girls does not sound like anything that should be on Surf's Up. I don't know.
No, maybe not on that, not on that album, but I'm just talking about the style of the song, because even in Disney Girls, I don't think it fits on that album, but it still has that Beach Boy harmony where, and even the songs on Sunflower, again, my least favorite Bruce song is probably Tears in the Morning, but even that still sounds like the Beach Boys. It just sounds like cheesy Beach Boys, but but Here She Comes or Hold On to Your Brother, again, they're nice songs, but they don't, the Beach Boys don't even really sing on those, you know what I mean? And so it sounds totally different. And I understand if you're going for a new edgy rock and roll sound, but again, why not even have, the Beach Boys sing those songs? And that was one of my complaints always about the Bruce songs too, was that he sings them all, because I would still rather have Al or Carl or somebody sing a Beach Boys song, you know what I mean? With that authentic sound. That's a story for another day, but
Yeah, well, who would sing Disney Girls though, Matt? Who would?
I don't know. Mike.
Who would sound good on Mike?
I think Carl would sound all right on that. It's got that. I think Carl could manage that. You know what I mean? He could do it. Yeah.
You know what? Carl would sound good on that.
Yeah, he would. Yeah.
All right. I can dig that.
Yeah, you could hear him singing the reality. It's not
totally.
For me.
Yeah,
his cool voice. Yeah,
I can hear Carl doing that. Okay, all right. I'm on board. What about Deirdre?
I think Deirdre's the same. Well, again, I don't think Bruce shouldn't sing any song. I think Bruce sounds okay in that one, but I think even that one could be Carl. It's got that Carl range. I think Bruce and Carl had a similar range.
Yeah.
Whether you like Carl's voice better, it might be is a different story. But I think Carl could have sung those songs. But those songs on Carl and the Passions in Holland, I mean, Sail on Sailor, Carl sang that live a lot, so he could have sung that one. But those other Blondie songs, I don't know, but who knows? So anyway, that's why I chose Bruce. But
let's go to the chat. Chat, what did you guys pick on this one? If you have one spot left on a Beach Boys album, who are you going with? Who's your writer? Who's the song or whose song you want on there? Is it Blondie and Ricky or Bruce Johnston number? We'd love to hear what you think and why. Would love Cindy says, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No,
it's all you.
Don, I'm sorry. Don just said Carl on Disney Girls, like Sweet Sunday Kind of Love. Yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of. That's why I wanted to read that one, because it would be that kind of a vocal. Yeah.
Totally. So, that's awesome. Cindy says Tears in the Morning by Dennis could have given it soul. Ooh.
Interesting.
That would have been really interesting for sure. I love it. I love thinking about this. David Savage on Facebook says, Bruce wrote, I write the songs for Barry Manilow. That's right. Yeah. And exactly. Very cool. Patty says Bruce Johnson. Patty, all right. Patty's vote is Bruce. Clean Man 93 on Twitch. Vote is Bruce there. Noah Newhouse says Blondie and Ricky because I won't fall asleep. Ooh, snap.
Oh, well, there's something to be said for that. The music's a little bit more exciting or different,
Yeah, it's definitely different. Definitely moves. I don't, what I mean? It definitely has some energy to it.
Yeah.
That I don't know that the Bruce songs have. Morna on Facebook says Bruce Johnson for same reasons Matt mentioned. Sandy says, yes, Cindy. Claire, I picked Ricky Blondie just because I didn't miss Bruce when he wasn't there. Yeah. Ooh, you know what? That's
interesting.
That's a good barometer for whether or not, but I wonder, did people miss Ricky and Blondie on like 15 Big Ones?
Well, but see, that's one of the things that I got at in what I talked about earlier is that by the mid 70s, and it didn't really matter if Bruce or Blondie, you know what I mean? They had so many other guys on stage,
that's true.
They kind of just filled in, so.
Yeah. John F. Butler on, Les Hastings says Dennis on Disney Girls like a Joe Cocker version. Yeah. Yeah. How cool would that have been?
Oh, yeah.
John F. Butler, cool. John Butler on Facebook. I was at the concert in 1974 in Kansas City at the Royal Stadium. I bet there were over 50,000 people there for the show. The Beach Boys played 3 hours with a couple of encores. They came out the third time and said, we have played everything. The crowd was really into the show. That's awesome to hear. I love that.
It's a great story.
Yeah, great story. Rand Richard on Facebook. I don't think he wrote it for Barry Manilow. Barry Manilow just chose the song to sing. Oh, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one of our experts in the chat could tell us whether or not Bruce specifically wrote it for Barry Manilow or whether Barry just maybe happened to hear it and pick it up. Wallene, the birthday girl, says Bruce Johnson, Scott James, Blondie, and Ricky. Denise, hi Denise, how are you? The band probably felt that the public was tired of the signature Beach Boys sound. Blondie and Ricky were a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and Greg and I disagree about that, but that's an interesting opinion. Yeah,
I mean, I agree with Denise on that.
Right, and I'm the opposite, and as we talked last week, yeah.
Yeah, Clean Man 93 says Bruce deserves some leads, and he's only going to get them if he wrote the song. You know what?
That's true.
That is really true. I guess why didn't Bruce get leads on other songs that?
It's like Blondie's the only one who got a lead on a song he didn't write. Almost,
he didn't
right?
write.
You know, out of the
I wonder. That's an interesting question. Why didn't Bruce ever get a lead on something he didn't write?
Yeah, he was around for Wild Honey and Friends and. Those albums, Sunflower moving forward. Yeah, it's interesting.
Monza kind of agrees. He thinks Mike would work with some of those songs. Monza says, I love how all of us, without saying it, know that Bruce's voice really doesn't work with the rest of them. He's too different in his tone, in my opinion. Yeah, and not bad, just different, right? Joel
he's
on YouTube,
very talented man, for sure.
Joel Goldenberg on YouTube says, on the Steve Hoffman forum, I got to ask Bruce about the alternate version of Tears with the Nepenthe lyric. I don't think I know that. Anybody know what he's talking about? See, this is where we're dumb and you guys are a lot smarter than we are. Joel, explain yourself. Lee Marshall says, yes, missed them on 15 big ones. Oh, okay. Noah on Facebook. Hey, Noah, no crap talk on Bruce songs. They're good in their own right, but I think I've said before here that this song sound more like he was writing a solo album. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Alexia. Hi, Alexia. Nelson on Facebook. He didn't specifically write it for Barry and the Captain and Timmy. Captain and Timmy also did a version. He didn't write it for... Okay, well, we have an expert that says didn't specifically write it for Barry. So I guess that's kind of how that works, right? You shop songs around.
But again, but think about if he had stayed with the Beach Boys and wrote that. That wouldn't have fit on a Beach Boys album.
No, not at all. I don't ever no, for sure. Karen on Facebook says I was on Bruce's solo album Going Public. Wait, Karen, what do you mean? What? It was on Bruce's solo album Going Public. Got it. Yeah. I was like, Karen, were you a singer or did you play guitar? It's awesome. Scott James, I write the songs is from the perspective of God. Bruce explained this on Huckabee. Interesting. Anthony, hey Anthony on Facebook, Barry's agent picked it out for him. Okay, all right, so that's how it's done there. David, I didn't mean he wrote it specifically for Banamo, but he did win a Grammy with it for sure. Scott, I think that's Bruce just wrote the song for himself. Okay, so it seems like the consensus from all the experts is that Bruce just wrote it and then it was maybe shopped and picked up by Barry Manilow's people. Hi, Dakota. Dakota's in the house. Dakota, very, very cool. Bradley Cooper, David Cassidy had a #1 version of I Wrote the Songs in England before Barry Manilow's. Really? Matt, did you know that?
I never knew that.
I didn't know that.
I had no idea. I didn't know.
Wow,
David
that's
Cassidy.
amazing.
The only Beach Boys song I saw him sing was Darlin'. Have you ever seen that? It's got the guys from the Turtles in the background, Flo and Eddie.
Wait, say that again?
David Cassidy sings Darlin', and Flo and Eddie are with him. You know the guy with the tambourine and the big hair? It's really funny, and they dance. I have
seen that.
You got to check that out. It's funny.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough version. I don't know that I'd listen to it, but it is.
It's funny. It's entertaining
about
for
that.
sure.
Yeah, I forget where I saw that. Maybe on Facebook or or on there.
It's on YouTube, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. These are good comments. Well, man, as we prepare for when I think about Probyn Gregory, I think he is, for some reason, his face is really recognizable. Like I remember first seeing him, I think the first time I saw Brian Wilson was in, Matt, when were you in Kansas City?
You mean for the concert?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the first time I saw Brian Wilson in concert.
That was 2005.
Was that Lucky Old Son?
No, we saw Lucky Old Son in Nashville. That was 2008.
Well, I thought I came out to Kansas. Oh no, maybe I didn't.
You didn't. You were gonna come, but you couldn't.
Nashville.
But I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nashville was my first. Okay, and it was Lucky Old Son.
Yeah. And he played the whole album. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
For some reason, his face, he's really recognizable. He's been with the group forever. He is really awesome. I'm really excited to talk with him.
Well, he's been part of that resurgence. I mean, what he's, we'll ask him some questions tonight, but what he's seen, he was there when Brian first came back on tour after all the anxiety Brian had. And then the Smile, he's all over the Smile documentary that David Leaf made, which is really cool. He was there for the world premiere of Lucky Old Son, the Pet Sounds and England tour Brian did in 2001, 2000. I mean, he was there for everything, it's pretty neat.
Did Matt Dino,
to be able to experience all of that.
Did he play on any Brian's solo records?
That's a good question. We need to ask him about that. I would say he probably played on some of them, and I think maybe even on That's Why God Made the Radio, but I'm not actually sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would be really
and
cool.
He was at the 50th as well. Remember, Probyn was in that band when the Beach Boys reunited for the 50th. He was part of that too.
Yeah, I know we have a question there about the 50th anniversary, because that's got to be, I mean, so being in Brian's band's cool, but then all of a sudden being part of a huge reunion for just a monumental band like the Beach Boys, that's got to be a pretty special experience for him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be very interesting for sure.
Wallene says, Greg, did you get a chance to go to the Beach Boys concert in Akron, Ohio? I didn't. I actually started feeling really not great on our last show, which was the day before that. So I ended up just taking it easy the next day, and I was really bummed that I missed that show. But I didn't get a chance to go see them, unfortunately. So
I will say though, from a lot of the clips on YouTube, and I know again it's YouTube clips, but Brian sound very, very strong voice. For his age, he sound better than he has in a long time. And it's really surprising to me. There's a couple songs there where he's just right on the key. He's singing more than he did in the past. He's not, giving a lot as much to Matt as he used to. And again, there might be shows where he did that, but a lot of the YouTube stuff is surprisingly, really good.
Yeah. I saw a clip of him singing, Matt, I shared it with you, I thought, or I told you about it.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Oh yeah, Probyn does play on Smile. That's right. Thank you, Spud. Yeah, on the studio. Spud's in the house.
Spud's in the house. Honored guest. Probyn plays on. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
well, then,
he does.
Well, if that's true, then
he Christmas album.
I'm sure he must have played on some other albums. Then
Lucky Old Son too. Guess, I think. Yeah.
Linda. Hey, Linda says we saw Probyn last Saturday at Brian's last show of the year. I was at the 50th. Also, it was truly phenomenal. Yeah, would love to see them get back together. I mean, they're all still touring. Just. I'm sure there's so much that goes into that, but it would be so great for them to even just do one concert or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cindy said Brian got a vocal coach. That's true. Gary Griffin told us that on our interview with him, that over the pandemic time, Brian had gotten a vocal coach and practice. Well, you could tell. So, yeah.
Yeah. Joseph says, got to run in a minute, but please thank Probyn for all he does alongside the others to make sure Brian's music is taken care of and respected. I have seen him with Brian at least 20 times since 1999, partially because it is clear that the band loves and respects its leader, and we respect and love them. Joseph, that is such a nice thought, and I'll try and remember to pass that along, because that really is special. It's you can definitely tell that they all very much care about the product they're putting out and representing Brian. So really nice thought.
Yep. Oh, Gershwin and Disney too. There you go. He's played on almost every Brian album then. So according to our friends here. Yep.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
I love that Gershwin album too. I go back to that one a lot. I like that. There's something about it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, his voice sounds good on it, and he obviously loved it. Was it was obviously something he really wanted to do. Something he So you can probably tell. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The inflection in his voice when he sings, the emotion is not something you always hear. When those. Everything's not overdubbed and everything, it's just him singing, and I like that sound. Yep.
Spud, absolute expert, Stone Cold here, says, here's what Probyn plays on Brian's Disney's album: vocals, slide guitar, trumpet, banjo, organ, vibraphone, electric guitar, nylon string guitar, acoustic guitar, electric 12-string guitar, ukulele, tambourine, toy instruments. Wow. Yeah. I think he's been called, seemingly, I guess I didn't know this, but secret weapon. He's obviously a multi-talented instrumentalist. It's a super awesome to see him on stage, kind of pick up the French horn and then play some guitar. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Noah says he's played on everything post Imagination, I believe, and I think he plays on one or two songs on That's Why God Made the Radio. Yeah. Man, that would be so awesome to play on a Beach Boy record. To say I played on a Beach Boy record.
Oh yeah, it'd be a dream. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Patty said, I just saw Brian 2 weeks ago in Atlantic City, and Brian sang a lot of the songs. Was so happy to see. Can't wait till the new CD comes out November 19th. Oh yeah, that's right. The piano.
What new CD is that? Oh
the At My Piano. And he's had some interviews now where he said, listen, I played every single part of that piano. I just played them at different times and they put them together. And I can buy that, because a lot of people are saying he doesn't play it, because they're basing it on what he does in concert maybe. But as we've already talked about, playing live and singing and trying to focus is a lot different than when you're just in the studio messing around, I mean, I think it would be different,
To me, it's kind of as silly as like seeing the Beach Boys in 1967 and being like, oh, this doesn't sound like Good Vibrations, or you know what I mean? You didn't really play that. It's like, well, they, it was all done in the studio, and you can do, the studio is an instrument, kind of by itself. It's a completely different thing. Also, during the pandemic, we're still in the pandemic, I suppose, but during the really heavy quarantine stuff in early 2020, remember he came out with some cool videos of him playing and singing piano, just him.
Oh yeah, he did a Do It Again. He did a God Only Knows.
He was legit. I mean, he was playing piano. It sounded really good.
Yeah. Yep. And singing. Yep. Yeah. So that's one thing that I kind of wish, I know he's older now, but I know the Beach Boys are a vocal group, but I think it would have been cool if he sang some of the melodies on some of those songs. But I mean, I'm going to judge it when it comes out, but
yeah. Matt, speaking of awesome, we have awesome with us right now. Probyn, can you hear us?
We cannot hear you.
Probyn, we can't hear you, but you can. I think you can hear us. So we got one down.
Okay, how about now?
There
we go.
Yay.
Okay.
All right, Probyn, let me fix your video
Good.
so it looks a little bit better on here.
Yeah, I can't get too much more light here.
Oh,
it's fine.
There we go. Oh no,
it's more on our stream.
On our
that's all. Yeah.
Awesome, Probyn. Wow, thank you so much for joining us. What an honor to have you here. I'm Greg. This is my brother Matt. It's such an honor to meet you. We probably know you a lot more than you know us, which is just fine. I think I probably speak for a lot of our viewers on here. We got a lot of folks on, and we're just so honored to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's an honor to be here as well.
Yeah.
Well, great. And Probyn, you just came off a really successful tour. We were just talking about that before you came on.
Yeah.
Not only how good the band always sounds, but really how good Brian has sounded in this tour. So I didn't get to see it in person, but thank you for that. I'm sure you made lots of people very happy. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun tour. I wish it could have been longer, and Brian was singing great. He's been taking some vocal lessons, and he's really feeling engaged, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit here, and I have to do something we've done with all of our honored guests on. I have to ask you the obligatory lame Beach Boy questions. So if you don't mind indulging us here, favorite Beach Boy album, and let's take Pet Sounds out of the equation to make it a little more fun.
Okay. Well, it's funny. I would sort of have to say Smile, but it was so. I almost can't give that as an answer because it wasn't released back in the time when it was recorded. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to go in your standard repertoire. I'd have to go with Sunflower.
Oh, okay. All right. I like it. Okay. Next question. Favorite Beach Boys song? You got it? One that just always is your go-to?
No, it changes all the time. There was almost a year in the 80s when I was obsessed with Please Let Me Wonder. Actually, this week, I'm going to go with Little Girl I Once Knew.
Oh, yeah. That's a great one.
What an intro. Now, I got to just put you on the spot. What do you play on the intro of that one when you guys play that live?
12-string guitar.
Oh, so you play that part? Oh, how
the awesome part.
The one that sounds vaguely Oriental, if that's not being racist to say so.
Yeah,
exactly.
Love it. Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh man, what a cool answer. That's an awesome tune. Well, thank you for answering our Beach Boy questions. I appreciate that.
So, Probyn, we'd just like to dive in here and maybe just tell all our friends here online. We have a lot of friends here. Happy that you're with us. How did you get into music yourself?
Yeah,
and maybe talk to us about your music career a little bit before you got to Brian, and just tell us how you came into music.
Sure. I mean, I could give you a long answer, but I know we're on a budget. So I'll just say that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for music in public education, like, music teachers at school. I had a guy, Bob Cummings, in high school, who was sort of my mentor. He let me as a freshman into the senior harmony class he said, well, what you got? Write me down what you know, and I'll let you know if you can get into this class. And I did. And he said, okay, fine. Because at that point I was really into Creedence Clearwater, and I would write out all the chords and I would transpose them to other keys and things that my friends weren't necessarily doing. Not that they couldn't have, but then maybe they were, and I didn't know about it. Anyway, I was in the jazz band and I was in the concert band, and he said to me, we need a French horn player. You've got good ears. Why don't you just play the French horn in the school band instead of the trumpet? And I'm like, fine, which I was able, luckily, to make the move over there. Anyway, long story short was, music was always something that I wanted to do, but I never thought I could make any money at it. It never occurred to me. I mean, I went to went to Oberlin College, which has a conservatory, but I was there as an English major, which is what I graduated as.
Okay.
So when I got out of school, my old friend Wiley Elson had secretly taped me playing along with Frank Zappa and Steely Dan records in my room on guitar. So he sent this tape to Berklee School of Music and this thing called GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology in Hollywood. And I was accepted at both places without even me. I didn't apply. My friend did in my stead.
Way.
So I ended up going to GIT in 1980. And after I was out in Los Angeles, I thought, you know what? I see some people that are like, they may be doing wedding bands, but they're actually paying their rent, making music.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
So I got into bands. I started playing with 2 or 3 bands at a time. And I never really got signed, but over the years I got involved with some bands that were really good. And one of them ended up being this group, Wondermints.
Yeah.
And Wondermints, which is without the, as a lot of people like to say.
Me.
Yeah, me too.
It's okay. It's all right. It's just a thing. Wondermints were, I'm sort of skipping ahead to, I don't want to get into the Brian Wilson part of the story, but we, played around clubs in LA, and sometimes we do covers, and sometimes we'd even cover some Beach Boys songs.
Yeah.
But that's skipping ahead. So yeah, I was working at a regular day job in the daytime, my 8 hours at either a bookstore or as an editor's job. Mm-hmm. But at night I was doing what I was really doing, which was in bands trying to get signed. I played in 2 and 3 bands at a time, which meant that every night of the week I was rehearsing with a band on trumpet or guitar or something like that.
So what was it then that got you to the English major then? Was there something that you obviously enjoyed some part of that, right? To spend all that time in Oberlin. What were you? Did you enjoy writing? Did you enjoy reading? What kind of were you?
Sure. Well, I was the arts editor of the newspaper, and I loved reading. That was something that my parents and grandparents instilled in me.
Yeah.
And it did seem like that there was something at that point anyway, when in the 70s, there wasn't the industry that there kind of is now around music. Mm-hmm. So, but academia, being a professor or a teacher, that had a long history, and your parents, because that's something your parents could approve of.
Right.
Oh yeah, an English major, sure, he's going to be an English professor, great. Yeah. Whereas guitar school, he's going to play in a rock band. How do those guys? Don't they make just gas money? I mean, of course, that's what the parents all say.
Yeah,
or did at that time.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so. Cool. We're going to get to the Brian questions, but before we do, before you met with Brian, and hopefully you'll tell us that story, but were you a Beach Boys fan, growing up?
Monster. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
When I was 8 years old, and I had my very first radio, little transistor radio, about 4 inches high and about 2 inches wide. That thing never left my ear. It was 1965. And you can guess what song it was, California Girls.
Oh, man.
When that song came on, it actually made me feel differently about everything, about the world. Like when that intro came on, whatever I was doing, I would stop and I would press it a little further into my ear and go, wow. It never ceased to amaze every time. Yeah. So already they were, on my radar when I was 8. And then when I was 9, of course, Good Vibrations was a giant hit. And when I was 10, it was Heroes and Villains was the radio hit, although that was such a weird song that even at 10, I think I realized that the person that did this there's something different. Yeah. This is not normal in whatever way. As it turned out, it was because he was a savant and he was a cut above, and it was, genius.
Yeah. That's neat. So that must have been such a thrill. Then when you eventually got to meet Brian, so maybe you could tell us about that now, how you ended up with Brian and in the marvelous band you're a part of.
Well, and can I jump in here real quick? And so kind of just to help segue into that with the Wondermints. So now, years later, you're with the Wondermints. Who in the group was, hey, let's play some Beach Boys stuff? Was that you? Were you, hey, I love the Beach Boys. We should cover some of this stuff.
Not really. Actually, I met Darian at a club because he was wearing a Smile T-shirt with the logo, and I went over to him. I said, "Where did you get this shirt?" Because I knew about Smile, but I didn't know. And he said, "I made it," and we started talking. It turned out we were both Stone Beach Boys fans, as was Nick Walusko.
Yeah.
We were all really major Beach Boys fans anyway. But that's how I met Darian, was through, and he made me a Smile T-shirt, which I should have worn it tonight. Somewhere in a box.
That's so sweet.
In the closet or.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so then you started playing covers. Obviously you guys were knocking them out of the park. How do you get to Brian?
Well, there's a thing that continues to this day called Wild Honey. These days it's an autism benefit, but it used to be a charity show for a group called Sweet Relief, which, as far as I remember, was something that helped older musicians who had been, cheated out of their royalties or had bad management and now didn't have a cent. And, let's imagine Chuck Berry didn't have the money that he'd saved and was in the hospital. Right. Sweet Relief would come and help a person like that.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway, nowadays it's a pretty big going concern at a large theater, but in the old days, they were in people's houses and eventually in a small theater in Santa Monica called the Morgan Wixon Theater in the 90s. And they would do tributes to like the Kinks, the Who. Mm-hmm. The Brian Wilson one was actually under Brian's name. They didn't even say the Beach Boys, although of course they were doing Beach Boys songs. And it turned out that in the Brian Wilson tribute show, Brian himself showed up with union musicians with the bow tie and reading charts. And I think Andy Paley was there overseeing. Mm-hmm. This was probably 1994. And I had actually met Brian before that once at a rehearsal place in West LA around the time of the solo album, 88, 89. I'd come in and I'd heard a track going and a singing going on in a room. And it sounded like Brian Wilson. So I said to the person at the front desk, "Who's in there in that room?" He said, "It's Brian Wilson." I'm like, "What?" And I almost fell on the floor. I mean, I knew this is my one chance. And so I said, "You wouldn't shoot me if I opened this door and shook his hand, would you?" And he said, "No, go for it." Oh. So I knocked on the door and he said, "Who is it?" And I said, "A fan, can I come in?" He said, "Come on in." So I came in and it was very brief. Brian had a short attention span. So, but I got my handshake and I said, your music's meant so much to me. So that was a couple years before. But anyway, at the show in 94, 95, the Wild Honey show, here comes Brian and he's there for the whole show. So he watched Wondermints play. I think we did This Whole World, Surf's Up.
Wow.
And Our Prayer.
Oh,
we were doing some kind of difficult material.
Yeah,
and he apparently he really liked us. And so a couple of years later, maybe I'm jumping ahead now, but a couple of years later, when they're forming the band, I think it was Melinda Wilson that reminded Brian, "Hey, what about those Wondermints guys?" Even though they were living in St. Charles, Illinois at that time.
Yeah.
But they flew us out. We auditioned for the band. We made it in, and the rest is history. But I think I'm jumping ahead. I'll answer your questions more specifically.
No, that is so.
No, that's great. Yeah.
I can't believe this all started with your friend. Your friend not even know. I mean, can you imagine? It's so funny how life works. Oh man.
Yes.
Are you still? Going back. I don't mean to get too personal here. Do you still connect with this friend you have? Do you guys still talk, or the person?
You mean the one that made the tape of me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we're still good friends.
Oh,
he lives in Taos, New Mexico. In fact, he gave me his father's Honda car a couple of years ago, which I drove for a while, and then for various reasons it had to leave. But I mean, yeah, I see him whenever we're out on tour. If we have a day off, I'll go and visit. If we're playing in Albuquerque, I've rented a car and gone to see him in Taos. So yeah,
great. We're such a great story.
Wiley Elson is his name. He's a great guy.
By the way, everybody, It's the Beach Boys Talk. We are so honored to have esteemed guest Brian Wilson, touring absolute legend, Stone Cold Killer. Mr. Probyn Gregory here with us, and we're just talking about how he got into Brian Wilson, working with Brian. What a treat!
So, Probyn, maybe you talk more about the audition time and meeting Brian in that sense, and then maybe once you made the band, what was it like working with him? I could imagine if I had musical talent like you did, and I tried out for a band whom I loved, Brian Wilson's my hero, I would have been a nervous wreck. Did any of that kind of stuff happen to you?
It was actually helpful that in the very beginning, even though Brian's house was right next door, the house and the person that we were auditioning for, well, I mean, Brian gave his okay to have the Wonderments in the band, which was a big band at that point and included many people from Chicago area who had played on the Imagination album. In any event, it was Joe Thomas was the leader of the band. He was the musical director when the band was being formed. So we rehearsed for about a week or more, maybe 10 days, without even seeing Brian. And I think they had taped us and then brought the tapes over to Brian, and he. Oh wow! But for some, and so for me that was easier. I didn't have to be the starstruck, nervous wreck that I would have been if Brian had been there right from the get-go. In fact, we were sort of eased into it after a while.
Do you remember the first time that it wasn't that arrangement, where it was actually kind of this is the real deal, where we're playing these tunes and Brian is here in front of me?
I don't really remember that. No, I mean, I do remember our very first show, which was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we were all pretty nervous. And of course, the place was packed because everyone wanted to see Brian and his new band. Yeah. And Brian was a little nervous, and I'm not even sure that he stayed in the city. I think he might have actually driven home that night, which was only a couple hours away. Right. And we weren't even sure how long the band would last because, everyone had heard rumors about the frailty of Brian, or whether or not he even wanted to continue to tour. Sure. Some people, not me, some people had said, "Oh, I'll give him 3 shows, and then it's gonna break up and fly into the ether." Yeah. Which luckily, 22 years later, we're still here.
Wow, that's right. And seemingly stronger than ever before from some of the clips I've heard. Just awesome. Really great. Yeah, I love it.
He's been singing great. He's been taking these vocal lessons and he's really engaged. He wants to be there. It's awesome. I love seeing that part of Brian.
One thing I noticed on this tour from the YouTube clips that I've never seen, and I've been to about 15 Brian Wilson shows, just so you know, since 2005. He's been doubling Matt Jardine's parts on the high parts. He's been singing, an octave lower, like on I Get Around, and California Girls. On some of the shows, he's been doing that. And I thought that was interesting, singing that melody part that he would have sung in falsetto. I thought that was neat. That was something new he was doing. So that's a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah, you never know what Brian's going to do. At a sound check the other day, we had to work on someone had switched their vocal part on Fun, Fun, Fun. So we launched into it. And when the lead came time for the lead vocal, Brian started singing the melody of Do It Again, which for a while worked over those chords.
Oh, yeah.
And we were all looking like, what? That's genius. He just his mind goes places that yours and our mine do not.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, without asking any questions, just do it. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a general question. And again, we'll get into more specific things, but in the 22 years you've been with Brian and you're still making memories, of course, and hopefully many more, is there like a milestone moment or something big that sticks out to you, like your best part of being in the Brian Wilson band?
That's an easy one. When we debuted Smile, after having done all of that work, and then we brought it in front of an audience in London for, I don't even remember how many nights it was that we were at the Royal Festival Hall. And you know that Van Dyke Parks and Paul McCartney and Ray Davies and whoever are in the audience.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know if we could pull it off. I mean, we'd been rehearsing it, but we'd never really actually played it all the way through. I don't think we'd done little pieces of it. And in front, of course, of a very probably train spotter audience that's going to go, oh, that note wasn't right. Or, hey, that chord's missing a seventh or something like that. We don't know what the response is going to be. Or how Brian's going to take it, because it was a big emotional thing for Brian to undertake Smile. And now here he is finally bringing it to fruition in front of the people. And I guess we pulled it off because it felt good, and it felt good the next night. And that was probably the high point of my career, because I was a giant fan of all the Smile fragments when I first heard of their existence and began collecting them on little cassettes, you know.
Awesome. It's funny you say that. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
No, you go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about you mentioning kind of the Smile and how he was gonna take it, and it reminds me of when Matt Jardine was on the show, and he talked about his dad hearing the Barnyard tapes, kind of the first time after a really long period of time, and really bringing back some, you know, traumatic memories of that time and some of the stuff that he was going through. So,
wow,
it's got to be what a thrill to be able to be there and be his support. And one of our earlier viewers who had to leave wanted to thank you kind of for this, but I'll, on behalf of everybody, thank you for helping support, you know, Brian and the gang and getting this music out there, because I know it's not easy. It's a lot of work, not just for Brian, but for everybody. And it's so great to have it out there again. We're all very lucky. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank your viewer who left, and anyone else that feels that way too. It's, you know, it's been such an honor to be part of the well, for lack of a better word, the sort of the renaissance of Brian in modern times. I mean, of course, he's come back and done many things over the course of his lengthy career, but it seems like it's been a little more steady state since 1999, when we've had this fairly solid core band together. And I just thank God that I was in the right place at the right time to be asked to be part of this mission, because I love this music so much, and I love Brian, and the music has meant so much to me. So to be able to be part of bringing that continuing gift to maybe even some new listeners that don't know the legacy of the Beach Boys. It's a total honor. I am humbled.
Yeah.
When you're playing those songs, or maybe when you first started playing them with Brian's band, you know, it's one thing to listen to them, like you mentioned, the California Girls, and hearing that intro. And I'm not a musician like my brother, but did you find any more insights when you're starting to play and you're like, oh, this is actually how this chord goes, and things like that? Were there kind of surprising things like that happen?
Yes, especially when we started doing Pet Sounds, and of course when we were working on Smile. I mean, when we got to some of the tapes when they had the breakdowns of like Cabin Essence, what's going on in the background, since that's such a dense track, or even getting some different takes of the end of, say, Surf's Up, where there's the vocal round at the end, or even something as, I won't say mundane, but something as more commonplace as I Get Around. You know, the intro part, the vocals, that is not easy. That is not like standard 1-3-5 voicing. There's sometimes when there's unisons and then they break apart, and there's times where you'd think that a note would follow another note. It doesn't. They cross. It's like, wow. As a kid, I didn't know that. When I heard I Get Around, I just said, oh yeah, there's a melody and there's some harmonies underneath. Well, not so fast, buddy, not so fast.
Well, and that kind of goes with Mike and I, when you, like, for example, with the Friends tour, when you're taking on a new album, is someone transcribing this stuff for you, where you have a bunch of sheet music you're looking at, or are you guys doing this? Do you all sit down and have a listening session on tunes where someone will kind of divvy out parts? How does that work with a new record like that, where you're trying something new, you know, a new album?
I mean, if it's brand new and Brian's just written it, sometimes we've been there when they were recording the background parts, so we have a memory of what he asked us to do at that time.
Sorry, I guess I should say.
Go on.
I'm sorry. I guess new in terms of like a new album that's in their old catalog that you guys haven't necessarily dug into.
Right. Like, let's just say that we started doing Girls on the Beach, which is something we've never tried to do.
Right.
I mean, that one's kind of straight ahead, and we can hear the parts just like we can in Warmth of the Sun. There's not really much question about what's going on there vocally. It is helpful to have, if we can have access in the vaults through people like Alan Boyd has been very helpful, Mark Lynette, Darian sometimes has access to these things, and then we can listen to either early takes that were just where sometimes you can hear things. Like on one of the Fire segments, there was I think the flutes are doing 3 notes in that part where, you know, jum chugga 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 jum bum 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 bum. You know, you know what I mean? The fire section.
Yeah.
There are these flutes doing this almost atonal chord. We weren't quite sure because there was so much else going on.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But there are some takes where they just like the flutes play alone for just a second to get the balance, or maybe they hang out longer than another instrument. And so we seize on those moments and go, now I hear what the notes are.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're doing a new old tune, we generally figure out our own parts, and we have our roles in the band laid out pretty much. Like of the guitars, I'm one of the guitar players. And it used to be that when Nick Walusko was around, and this has now fallen to Rob Bonfilio, there's sort of like, a lot of times there's sort of what I call a Chuck Berry chugging along power chord, do, 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 a lower rhythm on the bottom strings that's pretty busy. And that was what Nick generally defaulted to, unless we had something where it was like 2 12 strings, like on I Know There's an Answer, where there's 2 discrete parts. But if it's just a standard sort of earlier Beach Boys song, then I will be the guy doing what I call and again, I'm not trying to be racist here. In fact, I'll use a different word. I was going to say chink. I'm going to say with a J now, jink.
Okay.
So I have the jink, 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 jink. That's what I default to, if that's one of the parts. Now the vocals, Darian generally is the maven of that. He listens to the parts and makes assignments to us, and sometimes it sits in right the first time and everything's great. Other times we have to just swap parts because someone's voice is a little stronger in a particular range. And we all can sing I won't say all over, like I can't sing the bass, but I can sing, woo! I can sing up there, but I can also go, hey now, sort of lower in the, so, we try things out. And then if they don't sound right, we fiddle around until they do sound right.
Wow.
That is so cool.
That is very cool.
Greg, I have a couple more, then I'm going to pass it off to you. Probyn, I wanted to ask you about Al and Blondie, but before I do that, just for kind of keeping a timeline, you were a member of the 50th anniversary tour. My brother and I were able to see that. And I got to say, that was they played for 3 hours. Well, you were there. They played everything. And again, now that we know you were kind of a big lifelong Beach Boys fan, how was that? Even when Greg and I went, we had been to Brian Wilson concerts before, but then when you get out on stage and you hear the drums for Do It Again, and then you hear Mike Love, that authentic voice that was there, so maybe tell us a little bit about that and your experience with the tour.
Sure. I always tell people, no matter how well we may or may not sing, those of us either in the Brian Wilson band or the current touring Beach Boys, the ones that weren't there originally, no matter how well we sing or play, it's not like the original guys. And there is something magic about that. I remember the first rehearsal for the 50th. So there we are in the room. There's Bruce. There's Al. There's David Marks, who even sang some, of course. There's Mike. There's Brian. Of course, you're missing Dennis and Carl. But we have all those voices. And I forget what tune it was. Maybe it was Little Deuce Coupe. But when they started singing all those original voices, the hair raised up on the back of my neck, because it's like, oh my God, that is the sound.
That's it.
That's what the people want to hear. That sound. Yeah. I mean, we're okay. The Brian Wilson band's okay, but we're not the Beach Boys, and we never will be the Beach Boys. Yeah. So I got to say, that was just so amazing to be playing and singing in a band behind the living original voices that sent people to the moon. Yeah. Those voices. That's why I think it's been said that the Beach Boys are America's great band. But I mean, I don't know if they still hold the sales record for, bands that are from that era. But anyway, so and then when we got deeper onto the tour and they were adding more and more tunes, This Is That, Forever, deeper cuts. We even did, I think we did Disney Girls, some Bruce solo. Did we do Deirdre? I don't think we did Deirdre. Anyway, things got added, and as you say, at the end it was a 3-hour show, which is just about to kill us vocally, because there's only so much that you can really sell your vocals for. Right. I'm good till about 2 hours and change.
Well, it was an incredible show. Like I said, Greg, that's one of our best memories. And what you described is exactly what happened to us when you hear, again, the Do It Again, Mike Love coming in, and then that harmony. And you hear Brian in the middle part. It was like you said, it's like all is right with the world. The Beach Boys are back together.
Right.
And on that note, now we have you have Al Jardine, who's I guess an official member of the Brian Wilson Band, and Blondie. We kind of talked about Al a little bit, but maybe you could just talk about what he brings. I mean, we know what he brings vocally, but musically, and then Blondie is kind of it's such a different part of the show when he comes on. It's a different energy and all that. So maybe you could just talk about Al and Blondie a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'll do Blondie first, just because there's I guess it's a little bit easier to me. He brings the rock. Like, he does songs where he has a chance to do guitar solos, and he has his old, I don't know if it's from the 50s or 60s. He has a very old Les Paul, which he's had, I think, maybe since The Flame. I mean, cool. Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he's, as Paul Mertens says in the show, Paul Von Mertens, our MD, says, he's the real deal, people. He's the real deal. And he is. He's not messing around. Whatever is on his mind, he's no holding back. He lets you have it. And he's a great singer. He got the rock credibility, been with the Stones for all that time.
Yeah.
And, all these solo albums and people that he's sung and played with over the years. He's, there's something about him. He represents that era, the early 70s, when Bruce left for a while, and it was Ricky, Ricky Fattar and Blondie and that Carl and the Passions era.
Yeah.
Era of the band. And I think that's a nice addition to the band, because we, the Brian Wilson Band, try to be as close to the record as we can, and we try to rock out, but the original records had a little gentility, or it's a little bit boutique-y. It's Baroque pop, because that's where Brian's head was. Not to say that he couldn't rock out. There's Marcella, that's more of a piano rock. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's nice once in a while to have a little sort of guitar rock, mainstream, dig in, do it, baby.
Yeah.
So that's what Blondie brings, the kind of the swagger. But to get to Al is just such a sweet guy. I travel on the same tour bus with him and Marianne, and he's such a gentle soul, and he really cares about people and about things. And as we know, his voice is essentially intact from the old days. It hasn't hasn't lost any of its tone, or he can cut right through a mix. When Al's there. Same with Brian, especially when Brian's lower down in his range. Brian sang on a Wonderment song. Can't remember what it was called now. It was on one of the later records, but you knew it was Brian right away. As soon as it motor ride, motor, he had there was a buzz in his voice. You're like, that's Brian right there.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well,
I don't know if I answered your question about Al. I mean, Al has a big folk background, as we all know.
Right.
And he brings this nice friendly umbrella of energy wherever he goes.
I love that.
Yeah. And I noticed, I saw the Pet Sounds tour, I think 2016, 18. I saw like 5 of them in different years. And I noticed towards the end, Al was singing a lot more of those Pet Sound songs, kind of giving Brian a break. Like he'd sing Here Today, for example. And again, his voice is just that authentic Beach Boys sound that it doesn't really take away from anything, and I like right. that he kind of would step in for Brian that way. It really seems like he cares about Brian a lot, when you see them up there together. And yes. I like that.
Yes, he does. He really does.
Now, my brother's really hot take that he has had over the past 6 months is that Al, as a takeaway, let's pretend you're not a Brian Wilson touring member. Let's just pretend you're a Beach Boy fan, just like we are here. I know you're a Beach Boy fan, but my brother's hot take is that Al. Matt, what's your take that Al has the best vocal out of anybody?
I think he's the best. I think he's the best singer in the original band, and I wish that he would have had more leads. I really do. There's something about that raspy tone he has, but I don't know. I just his voice is very distinct but very pleasant, and I love listening to him. The only regret I have is he didn't sing more songs, in my opinion. So.
I know what you mean. But the first time I heard "Loop De Loop Flip Flop," the airplane song. Yeah, I thought, God, that's such a great vocal from Al, or any of these other ones that didn't see release for a long time. I'm sad that he didn't sing more leads too. I'm not sure what was going on with that, other than course, Mike Love started out as the lead singer, and everyone to each voice fell a certain quality. I feel like Carl really sort of almost came, I won't say from nothing, but he sort of made the biggest leap out of all of them, from like someone that was it Carl's Big Chance, or what was his?
That was the guitar one. Well, what he's saying, like Louie
Pom Pom
Louie
Playgirl or something.
Pom Pom Playgirl.
It might have been Pom Pom Playgirl. Yeah, and that was okay. But then when you get to the time of God Only Knows or Good Vibrations, it's like what? That's the same guy?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, even Girl Don't Tell Me was such a big jump too from that stuff.
Right.
Man,
that's
awesome.
true. That's true.
Yeah. But I mean, Help Me Round Out of Me is, I know it's not their most complex song or, whatever, but I love it. I love the production. And again, with Al's lead vocal on that, to me, that's the Beach Boys sound right there, so that's why I love Al so much.
Probyn, if you don't mind, just a couple more questions. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're busy and probably tired. But
no, it's okay. I mean, sometimes the road is a little bit of a vacation. There's a bus, there's beds on the bus, and we got a couple of days off. We could just stay in the hotel or wander around the town. Anyway, go on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we do.
Do you have a favorite? When you're on stage, do you have a favorite song that when you see it come up on a new set list or something, you're like, yes, this is something I just really get a kick out of? And I'm sure that changes, right? Just like your favorite song. But do you have one that sticks out to you as something you just can't wait to get to?
Yeah. When we're doing the Pet Sounds tour, even though we've done it a lot now and it's almost overplayed, I still like Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder. I have actually shed tears on a couple of occasions when we were playing that live.
Wow.
There's something about that tune that is, wow. It just pushes a button in me.
So can you talk us through, and I'm going back a little bit. So, on these tours, do you guys do a lot of rehearsing the day? I know we talked with Gary a little bit about his do you have a routine for your shows? I mean, do you have like a thing do you wear a certain kind of socks, that you have every show or something you haven't changed in 20 years?
I hope I've changed socks in 20 years. No, I don't really have a routine. I mean, I know that Matt likes to warm up vocally. That's something that he grew up doing and is important to him.
Yeah.
I don't do that. It may be on purpose, because if I warm up too much, if it gets near the end of the show, I sort of spent part of my vocal power singing in the dressing room when I didn't need to.
Sure.
So my routine, I mean, just in brief, I'll just zip through it. When on a regular tour day, I wake up, I get online, I hang around the hotel room, go to the gym, whatever, and then we check out at about 2-3 in the afternoon, get on the bus, go to the venue, get into the dressing room in a half an hour or less. I mean, maybe we make a sandwich, maybe I eat a banana, whatever. We go down and do the sound check, 3:30 or 4 o'clock. In the old days, there was like a meet and greet sound check with people that had paid for the privilege.
Yeah.
So then that ends, and then there's catering, there's dinner, and then we hang around. And if it's not a COVID year, I'm out in the lobby meeting some friends or some fans or whatever. And then we go back and get into our show clothes, and we do a spirit circle. We get over to Brian's room or right next to him on stage, and we all stand in a circle and we say something hopefully uplifting a little bit. And then we go out on stage, do the show. At the end of the show, we're breaking down our gears best we can. Then we get on the bus and head for the next hotel, which could be an hour down the road or could be 6 hours down the road.
Right.
And then it all starts again.
Yeah.
But the show is the fun part. In fact, we have this saying, you may have heard it from some of the other people in the band, which is that I play the show for free. They pay me to travel.
That's exactly what Gary said. Yeah.
So really? Gary said that?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, can you tell us, what do you have going on now? So tour's over. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to keep going with Brian, but do you have anything outside of Brian? Do you have anything you're working on? Any record? I mean, you're obviously such a talented guy. I mean, are you writing? Do you have any projects going on outside of the Brian Wilson stuff?
Right now, not really. I'm about to tackle a song, which I won't name, from Todd Rundgren's Something Anything album.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you know the name Fernando Perdomo, but he's an LA pop guy, and he's trying to get he's trying to redo the whole album with different people doing the tracks or different vocals. We did a similar thing with Ram, the Paul and Linda McCartney album last year. I played a bunch of brass on that. I didn't do a lead vocal, which I'm going to do on this Todd Rundgren.
Awesome.
But people sometimes send me tracks to play brass on. I sometimes work with Jason Brewer of the Explorers Club. He sends me stuff. I put on trombone, French horn, trumpet, or whatever. Other people do the same thing. Mm-hmm. He's been a sort of a repeat client. I don't know who's the client and who's the offender. The repeat offender? Who is it? So I just do little projects as they come in. But I'd like to eventually do a solo album someday, like Gary Griffin did. But I haven't recorded anything for it yet. So.
Oh well, hey, we would love it. You have.
Probyn,
we'll all buy it on here.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Probyn, I read you used to tour or recently toured with the Monkees. Is that true?
Yes, they're currently on the middle of their farewell tour, and I couldn't do it partly because the 3 weeks I just had with Brian were in the middle of their 10 weeks of farewell tour. But I'm going to be sitting in with them at their last show at the Greek in LA, or at least I'm supposed to. Hopefully it'll happen.
I have to geek out a little bit here. Do you know? Are you familiar? Do you know Wayne Avers?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we played together in Nashville. He's an awesome guy.
He's an awesome guy and a great player. He is a fantastic guitar player.
He is so good.
So it was in 2019. I did 3 weeks with the Monkees, which was a dream come true. It was all thanks to the manager, Andrew Sandoval, who's an old friend of mine. I used to be in his band when that was around, and that was lovely. I mean, Mickey and it's funny I say Mickey and Mike. Mike likes to be called Nez. So it sounds like I'm being too familiar, but he's the one that wants to be called Nez.
That's awesome.
They're so great. They're such great entertainers, and I'm really sorry that Davey and Peter died. But when I was a kid, and when I was 10 years old, my favorite bands in the world, in this order, thanks to the television show of the Monkees, in this order, my favorite bands were the Monkees, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Byrds. Those are my big four.
Really?
And so I managed to play with two of them. I've been for 6 months in 2012. I was a touring Beach Boy, and now I've been a touring Monkey. So I'm happy.
Awesome.
Man,
what else can you ask for,
God.
right?
Yeah,
really. I've been so lucky. Again, I've been so lucky that I have been able to just cross paths with people who were able to assist me along the way, and I hope that I've been able to assist a few people along the way myself as well.
Well, geez, I don't know what to say, Probyn. It's been such an honor. I mean, I think I've been watching you do your thing for just about 20 years, right? I mean, it's been awesome ever since I was little. So it's I really appreciate you coming on the show and just kind of gracing us with your presence. We are so honored to have you. Just such a great guest, and we really appreciate your time.
That's great. Yes. Thanks. By the way, among your questions, I remember one that just occurred to me. I can give you a short answer if there's time.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm worried about your time.
We don't want to keep you. If you
no. I budgeted more time than this for.
Very good.
All right. Okay.
But I don't want to make your segment go long.
No, we'll talk to you forever. I have the next 4 hours. I don't have to sleep tonight. Okay, so 4 hours. Great. Now.
Oh well, the question that was among the ones that was posed, which, dear viewers, they did send it to me ahead of time, so I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Was there ever any time that you messed up badly on stage?
I did want to ask you that. Yeah. And
there were go on.
Going along with that, like who polices that? Like, is there a car? Because we always hear stories from Bobby Figueroa. Like he always mentioned Carl would be on that. So sorry.
Give the look.
Stink eye. The stink eye.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
According to legend, it is that if something was if he heard you playing a wrong note or something was messed up, you'd see Carl's head move on stage and he'd look over at you. That's the first thing that would happen. Yeah. If I'm remembering this right. Other people like Kowalski or Figueroa can fix it for me if I've done it wrong. And so then number two would be that he comes over and he says, "Are you okay?" And he like puts his hand on your shoulder, like, "Is everything all right?"
Oh no.
That's so terrible.
And then the third time is apparently you have the talk where you can't make those kind of mistakes. You better fix this, or you might not be here at the next gig. And then I think number four was that there was a conference and maybe there was a purge that sometimes apparently used to happen in the Beach Boys. So anyway, that's just an aside. So the two times that I messed up, there's not really anyone that polices that in our band. I mean, we're all listening to everyone else, especially because the vocal parts change from song to song. Sometimes I'm doubling with someone different than on the song before. And so I'll want that person up in my mix a little bit more on that particular song. And then on the next song, I want that person down, and the person I'm doubling with on this song a little bit louder, so I can try to match them exactly. And by the way, doubling is way harder than singing harmony. Getting two notes to be exactly the same when they're drifting a little bit like this, takes so much brain power, and that's the hardest thing I do, is trying to double with other people.
That's interesting.
So anyway, the two things that were the times that I messed up badly was the first time we did the Neil Young Bridge School concert. It was a benefit in 1999. We went up there, and it's an outdoor place at the Shoreline Amphitheater, and the show goes very late. So we were on one of the last things, we're at midnight, might have been later, and it's cold. We're near the bay, and as famously Mark Twain commented, the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. So it was icy, and the call was for God only knows, but the only person that heard the count off was the drummer, Jim Hines, at the time. Jim Hines and I heard the count off. So I am playing alone because no one else had heard the count off, because we had funny sound. And so it's the French horn on the God only knows, and the French horn and the flute is supposed to start. It's me alone on an ice cold French horn. And here's what it sounds like. It's terrible. This is like 20,000 people. It's a giant audience. And I'm like, oh my God. So that was that. So there was no recovering from that. I mean, eventually the horn got warmed up and it was okay at the end. But so I felt the worst about that one. But the other time that Brian told me afterward, never do that again, was also might have been that same year, 99 or 2000. We were playing at the Roxy in Los Angeles, and I don't remember what song it was. It might have been Do It Again. It came time for the guitar solo, and I was overcome with a fit of my punk past. I mean, I wasn't really I was only in a couple of punk bands. I didn't really live the life that long, but I used to have that sort of element into me. So I went down on the floor, and I laid on the floor, and I did what I call the maggot, which is that as I'm playing a guitar solo, lying on the floor, looking, as Brian later told me, he said, "I thought you were having a seizure." So I do my solo on the floor, writhing, doing the maggot, and then I get up and finish the song. And Brian is like, he is very upset. And after the show, he told me, you please don't do that again. I thought you were dying.
Oh my gosh. Meanwhile, there's no real super guitar solo in Friends. You just kind of added it in there, right?
Oh, the song Friends. I know. I don't think this was on Friends.
No, I know. No. Oh, that's so
Take
good.
some liberties, right?
Well, so that's a question right there, right? So do you ever, as a musician, I would think it'd be difficult to not every once in a while add something that maybe just like naturally, because you're a creator. I mean, at heart, you create, right? I mean, is it difficult for you every night you're playing the same exact thing every time? Do you ever catch any of the other bandmates or yourself singing vocally, trying to make it your own or better in some way that you mentally,
I know exactly what you're talking about. And the answer is, I would never dare to add my own vocal inflections to something, especially when we were trying to create a song. That said, I am probably the person in the band the most guilty of having put in things that came into my mind, and that, especially during a sound check or rehearsal, for instance, I've been rightfully called on the carpet by the MD, Paul Von Burtons, or Darian, or other people, because sometimes during the song, just in the middle of it, I'll go, I'll throw in the Rhonda lick. It's like, that was funny the first 2 times I did it. I did that on and off for years, and I won't do it anymore because it's not, not only do I not like getting called on the carpet, but I don't want to bug the rest of the band. They're doing their job, and I should be doing my job. So I'm a little bit more adult now. I
got it.
This much more adult.
Yeah, but it's gotta be tempting all the time. Like I said, just to do that, rock out to play all those because I notice sometimes it's probably planned now, but at the end of Fun, they do the Gershwin thing now, right? Don't they play part of Rhapsody in Blue or something?
Yeah, well, when I say it's not like we're trying to be the letter of the recorded version every single time. The band, within its own narrow parameters does take small liberties. Or for instance, there was never a sax solo in Barbara Ann, but when we do it, there is.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
right.
So, I mean, what are you going to say? So there are things that we've agreed, sometimes without even talking about it. We just agreed to go along with things. Like I think I probably play a different guitar rhythm on Surfin' USA than was on the record, but it's in the ballpark. And people haven't complained to me about it, and nor have I complained when I hear some funny things coming from the other side of the stage. When I say funny, I just meant deviating from the record.
Right.
I mean, we are a live band, and I think the audience wants us to put a small amount of our own personality, but without disturbing the general tenor of what, especially if it's a beautiful song like Please Let Me Wonder, or even Surfer Girl. I mean, that's Surfer Girl. That's sacred ground. You can't go messing with Surfer Girl.
But Probyn, this question is a little off the cuff. So once again, anything you're uncomfortable with, just say pass, and we'll move on pretty quickly here. But being a Beach Boy fan, you're in a really unique situation to where you were listening to California Girls when it came out, and you were listening to this stuff, and then now you're with these guys on tour all the time. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're sitting and you like, I just imagine being like sitting across from Blondie for some reason, like you guys are waiting for a bus or something, and you guys strike up a conversation, and I would have the itch to ask him something very Beach Boy nerdy, like, oh man, what was it? Holland, tell me all about that record, and all that kind of stuff. Like, do you ever get the itch? Have you ever, like, has the Beach Boy kind of geek come out? And I mean geek in the most positive way, because we love the Beach Boys, and I would probably be this person. Have you ever found yourself wanting to ask maybe Brian or Al or any of those guys like a specific Beach Boy fan question? Or have you kind of done a really nice job of kind of keeping that separate from the musician side?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've been lucky enough that the band is friendly enough that we don't generally, especially in modern times, we don't stand on ceremony. I mean, I have asked about leaving this town, or asked Al about what was your part on this, or what were you, what was in your mind, who wrote the beginning of Lady Linda, the sort of the Bach borrowing, stuff like that. And they'll answer me honestly. Sometimes it's even gone the other way. That one time I was listening to something on my little laptop on the bus, and it must have been a doo-wop song, and Al said, "Hey, that's great. I haven't heard that since I was a kid." Oh, didn't they do something? And I said, "Let me look it up." And I looked up the next song and said, "Can you play that?" And I did. And pretty soon we were on this doo-wop kick, which awesome. It was like him and me in the front of the bus, listening to all these old tunes that some of which he hadn't heard since the day, and others which were just favorites that he was revisiting. But Brian's a little different. When the band first formed, we were told that he did not wish to hear any talk of any material on Smile. We weren't to say the words Evanescence, Surf's Up, anything like that. Wonderful, would just don't bring it up. Wow. It reminded him of a hard time in his life, and you'd prefer not to think about it. So
that's fair. Yeah, I get it.
And there are still questions that I have I wish I was a fly on the wall, because at this point, Brian's gotten to the age where even if I ask him, why did Dennis sing that? Did you tell Dennis to sing that part there? Or what's the vocal part on such and such a song? He won't remember. He just, he might have remembered 30 or 40 years ago.
Right.
But now he's old. We're all older. Heck, I'm 64, Brian's 79, so, I mean, so I've actually asked all the questions that I feel I'm all geeked out. My geekdom is over.
I just imagine, like, do you have every album signed twice? You know what I mean? Like, is it that kind of thing?
No. And I'm not really a collector. I have over the years, I've gotten a lot of albums signed, but the 99% of those were for fans that handed them to me. And now it's a different thing. Now, partly because there was a VIP and people paid to have things signed, and also because Brian, he would just gladly sign anything, and it was getting a little much, and I'm afraid that I, without meaning to, probably took too much advantage of that, and I was gently told by some people in the organization that I should stop doing that. So I did.
Yeah.
So you know what? I don't have that many things signed. One of the first times that we worked with Brian, when we were backing him up at a radio show in like 1995, when the Wonderments were doing that, I did bring him in my Good Vibrations box set, and I had him sign that. That was probably the only time. That was the only time when I hadn't been in the band that I was asking for his signature. Anything after that was like, "Hey, Bri, how you doing? Hey, would you mind giving this single one signed? There's this kid out there who, you know, is standing in the rain, hoping to get this signed." And he would do it. And then I, you know, other people. I'm not the only one that did that. Other people did that too.
Right.
We got
also it's a bit of an imposition. Like I can see why people like Paul McCartney now only do it either for causes or they just stopped altogether.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
When he came out with Lucky Old Son, he did a signing at a record store in Nashville. Greg and I went to that concert together at the Ryman, you know, the classic theater. And we got a Pet Sounds album signed. We bought some original ones on eBay, you know, the 66 version. So that was really cool. And we got to just say, you know, hey, thank you for the music and all that. And that was a neat. And then we got to meet him at a meet and greet one time in the Cleveland area for a Pet Sound show. And we got to shake his hand and stuff. And that was a thrill. And we met Al too, remember? And Blondie.
Yeah.
Blondie's like, oh, it's you guys again. Yeah.
I remember I think we were in St. Charles. And for some reason I was at a record store in Lincoln, Nebraska of all places. And I found a bootleg Smile vinyl. Like it was before any of the Smiles. This was before Brian Wilson Presents Smile, any of this kind of stuff.
It was like the Gershwin era.
It was like from Japan or something. And I was like, where did this come from? This is amazing. And I remember being so worried because I brought it with me to St. Charles, and I was so worried that I was gonna upset Brian or something by having him sign it. You know, if like I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. You know, but
because it was a bootleg and it wasn't an official release.
Oh yeah, that
and it was
the whole
Smile
thing. I was like, oh man, this is probably really. This is just kind of scary, and he was so sweet, and he signed everything. You probably signed so much stuff that you're probably not even looking at half the stuff he signs. I would gather, but he to back you up, obviously, you know, he's been so generous with his time and generous with signings and all that kind of stuff. I think we're a very, very lucky fan base in that way. You know, so it's very
true.
Cool.
People have had a lot of access to Brian over the years, and he's been very gracious with his time and energy in that way.
Yeah.
Probyn, would you be willing to take a few questions from the chat?
Sure. Fire away.
Adam Marsland's on here, by the way. He wants to say hello. And
well, I know Adam quite well. Hi back to him.
Yeah, I had one more question though, and then maybe we'll go to the chat.
Yeah, if you have some questions, get them in the chat real quick. We'll answer a couple for Probyn. If you have a question, let us know.
If you could this is kind of a more general question, but just working with Brian so long and being a fan the way you are, musically speaking, what do you like most about Brian Wilson?
I think I like that he taps into a universal. I don't want to say sadness, but there's a sort of a yearning in a lot of the music, even in the happy-go-lucky stuff. There's something behind the vocals that is very human, and that I think a lot of people, regardless of being Western or not, you could be from India or Japan, and I think that the vocals speak to you. And the music that occurs to him in his mind that he wants to bring to us it has touched so many lives. I don't know how to say it other than that it's like a gift from God that Brian Wilson has given us this music. And I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, someone else could have come up with those chords, maybe even those melodies, but the particular aggregation of the chords, the melodies, the quality of those voices, and even just knowing that he's fighting these mental demons, that he has these audio hallucinations all the time. We feel his pain. The listener knows that Brian is that he shares things with us, but he's also fighting his own demons. And I don't know, I'm not expressing it very well, but there's a kind of a magic intersection of things that makes Brian Wilson unique to me and all the world.
Oh yeah, I
know. Yeah, I know
really,
exactly
really
what
well
you
said.
mean. Yeah.
And I think we all know exactly what you mean in some strange way. I think we all can. His music, he almost is an emotion in some way. It's a very specific emotion he's able to communicate. It's awesome.
Right, and he's not always that way. He's goofy too.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's an awesome segue because one of our questions is, do you have a funny? A lot of our guests have kind of shared funny moments with Brian or sweet moments with Brian. Do you have anything that you can share with us that you can remember, like a funny moment, something that made you chuckle with Brian? And these are all on the spot, by the way, so don't worry.
It's all right. I'll give you the one where it was probably the most meaningful exchange we ever had, which was that we were doing a little recording at Gary Griffin's studio, and it went on, and his whatever ride he was going to take, he hadn't driven himself, and he needed to get home, so it fell to me when the session was over to drive him home, and this is the only time I'd ever been alone with Brian Wilson in a car, and he was like, we know each other. You know, this is maybe 10 years ago or something this happened, but he almost felt like a little nervous. So to break the ice, I put on the radio and put on an oldies station, and I forget what was playing, you know, Unchained Melody, The Righteous Brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
And then on comes Blood, Sweat and Tears. You've made me so very happy.
Yeah.
And Brian sort of perks up a little bit. And then I can see that he's sort of humming along, and then he's singing along. Then he looks over at me, and I start singing harmony, and then we start singing louder. Pretty soon, we're singing as loud as we can. You made me so very happy. Life is all this stuff. It was the most fun I've ever had with it. And then when the next song came on, and it was okay, but we could say that he kind of like, we all came back down to earth again.
Fun.
I don't know, a sweet moment. I'm trying to pick one in particular out. You know, the thing is, Brian's a sort of a private guy, and he does have a kind of a short attention span. Sure. So when you're in the room with him, if you're not actually playing music or something to do with music itself, he oftentimes gives you a signal, usually, you know, non-verbally, by either you just vibe it out that he's like saying, okay, I'm done now. So I prefer to either you leave the room or we get on to some other topic.
Right.
Right. I don't know. There was one time, this is kind of funny to me. He was working on a song called The Path of Life, which I don't think ever saw the light of day. Although we used to play when he was first working on it. This is, again, 10 or more years ago. We would sometimes do it. And in a show, he'd say, guys, we're doing Path of Life. So we do the little bit that we worked out. And then the same thing we've done over the years with, he's done with Row, Row Your Boat, or we've done with River Deep, Mountain High, just sort of little fragments of it. And so I came into his room to do something. I don't know why. Maybe I had to deliver him something from the manager, whatever it was. I came in and he said, Probyn, what is the best line here? And he sang some line, which I can't remember what it was. And he sang, what about this lyric? And he did the same thing with the other lyric. And I said, I think I like the second one. He said, great. So I left, and I heard him later on. He said, Probyn and me are writing a song. And I'm like, wait a minute. No. Don't. Now we're getting like, I hope this is not what happened to Landy. I mean, I don't want to touch Landy. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened to Landy.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I sort of tried to exit. It's like, I don't want to be cast as someone who's trying to write a song with Brian. I don't want to put my footprint I don't want to be accused of even attempting to put my footprint on it. So like, no, I'm not. No, I didn't. I just answered a yes or no question about what's my favorite.
So good.
That's kind of really shows Brian's humbleness though too, you know, that he does that.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat, you know. Yeah.
All right.
I'm not the only one. I've heard that same story from other people in the organization.
That's funny. Yeah. All right. Last question, Probyn, for you, and then we'll let you go here. But because this is what question I had too. Is there any song out there in the Beach Boys catalog or the Brian Wilson catalog that you know you'll never play, but you really wish that you could play it live with Brian and the Beach Boys?
Wow. As I'm trying to think of the real answer to what I know you're getting at, I'll get at one that we tried a couple of times and it just never sounded good enough. So we'd let it pass, and that was Warmth of the Sun.
Really?
Yeah. It's partly because the notes are held out in the background so long. What good is the dawn? And there's like right there, I already took a breath.
Right.
I couldn't do that line. So and somehow the timbres never really, we switched parts around and it just never sounded right, so we abandoned it. But if I had to think of a song that we haven't done that I would like to do, wow, that's really tough. Maybe The Back of My Mind.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That rough Dennis vocal.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure if there's any background vocals on that.
I don't think there is.
I don't think there is. I think you're right.
No, there isn't.
I mean,
just him,
really lush
So maybe that's
arrangement, right?
in which case that's a poor choice, because I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to kind of pass on that question and just leave you with that sort of once with the sun answer. That
it's a good question. I can't take credit for it. That was from Tom on Facebook
chat,
joining us. So Tom, thank you for the good question. Probyn, this has been awesome. I just love chatting with you, both as a fellow Beach Boy fan and just an absolute legend and a hero for me and my brother. So thank you for all you do for Brian. Thank you for all you do for us fans and keeping that music going and giving us something to look forward to. Matt, any closing thoughts for Probyn?
No, same thing. Just what you've done the last 20 years just for Brian and to keep the music alive. Again, as Greg said, just as fans and lovers of the Beach Boys and Brian, we can't thank you enough. So
yeah.
Well, it's been my pleasure, I have to say, and I've been so fortunate to have found myself in this position again, thinking that it might only last a year or two at the outside when we first started. It's been a real roller coaster ride, and I'm glad that I've been on it.
Yeah. Everybody, how about some waves and hearts and thank yous in the chat for Probyn for joining us this week on Beach Boys Talk. Probyn, all the best to you, my friend. I hope to see you on stage again real soon.
Me, and I hope that you do too. Okay.
All right.
Take care. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Man, that was awesome.
What a
Great
neat guy.
Stories. Oh man, so insightful. Just love chatting with him. He's such a positive energy. Really, really cool guy.
Yeah.
Chad, thank you. That was awesome. We really, really appreciate you hanging out with us, there. Matt, any thoughts on Probyn?
It was what I expected, but even more. He he gives off even on stage that vibe that he had, that very happy, positive vibe, and his stories were really incredible. And I didn't know he was a big Beach Boys fan the way he said he was. So that was really neat to hear, because again, what a second guy in a row we've heard that were diehard Beach Boys fans that just get to all of a sudden be with him and play. What a dream, So I was really honored to speak with him. It was awesome.
Yeah. And it's not like it's such a bizarre thing where being that big of a Beach Boy fan, it didn't seem like, from his story, it didn't seem like he went out of his way to play with Brian or the Beach Boys. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of happened, And it's like that's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, it is. That stuff doesn't happen by accident, So, and that's why I think him
really
staying with the band so long and all the instruments he plays, and I thought the stuff he talked about too, that because first of all, I think the Brian Wilson band is the best. I haven't seen a lot of live concerts, but they're top-notch band,
Oh yeah,
and
great.
they do the Beach Boy music really well. But I thought it was interesting when he talked about how, we'll never be the Beach Boys, and he talked about the hairs going on his head when he heard, the five of them. That was a neat story too, because that is something to think about. There's nothing like the real thing,
Yeah.
So,
oh man, can you imagine? Yeah, just it's cool to think, like having Probyn here kind of gives you and same thing with like Gary and those guys. Like you get to kind of be in their shoes for a minute in some of these really big moments. Yeah. And that's not just a big moment for him. That's a big moment for the world. Like or the Beach Boy community, when Mike Love steps up to the microphone and sings for that first time as a group, like he's, we're getting to kind of hear what it was like to witness that, and
I mean, can you imagine that moment? You're there with all those guys,
I cannot.
And you're part of the band, and you're like, I'm just jamming with the original Beach Boys here. What a
just playing Little Do Scoop with Mike Love singing lead. It's pretty incredible experience. So
no, it was very neat, very interesting. Yep,
awesome. Well, this has been an awesome show, Matt. Really fun. And, and going back, not to get too reflective here, but this has been such a really awesome year for us anyway. I know it's been tough. And I think that's what I mean. And it's been really a tough year for everybody the past couple of years. And this show has been so much fun to come every week and have such an awesome group of people, of loyal friends that and new people every week that have been so awesome and make us feel like kind of the whole point of this whole show is there are other Beach Boy fans out there. You don't have to be alone in this. You can come. I make it sound like it's, we're this cult thing, but it is a place to come hang out every Tuesday night with us. And it's been such an honor to talk with some of the people we've gotten to talk to. I don't even know how it's happened, but I don't know how we get to have people on here and chat with such a really cool group of folks. And with that being said, our next show will be officially our last show until January. We'll be back in January with season 2. We've got some really cool stuff planned. We're gonna be new and improved. So Beach Boys Talk season 2 is gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of cool stuff. But we are gonna take a break. So our next show will be our last show of the season. And it's been so much fun, and we'll our next show we'll do some reflecting. We'll go back and I think we'll watch some old videos from some really old interviews that we've done and go through some of the guests we've had, and it's gonna be fun. I think it'll be fun to recognize all of our friends and just kind of say goodbye for the year before we head into the holidays here, and then come back strong in January.
Yeah, it really has been kind of a light and some darkness for me personally to be able to do the show with you Tuesday nights and meet all these neat people, Beach Boys fans. And then again, also with all the people we've met from the Beach Boy world, I never thought, and as being a super fan like I am, we knew who a lot of these guys are. And I never thought in my life I'd ever get to speak to any of them, just like Probyn tonight, so I feel very blessed, and I've enjoyed this immensely. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool, Matt. Well, we're way over time now, so why don't we call it? It's been a really fun night. We will be back at it for a very special final season finale. So stay tuned. If you're not part of the Facebook group or our Facebook page, head on over there. Join in some of the conversations there. It's going to be a really fun last show for us, and then we'll take a break. But we love you, everybody. Thank you again. Yep. Thank you again for being a part of a really fun show. Really fun times with Probyn. Thank you, Probyn, for joining us. We love you guys. Good night.